You were about to get started now.
You're like, ignore me. I'm like, I gotta stop saying this.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? Hi, welcome and thank you for coming to Africa as the country's inaugural World Cup Salon. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes, just getting situated, and then we'll have our first panel at 6:15. So stay tuned. Hi, everyone. Can we get seated? We'll be starting in just about 30 seconds. All right, we all ready? All right, well, first off, thank you guys again for participating in Africa as the Country's inaugural World Cup Salon. We're all really happy to have you here. You know, the same, one with the weather, and two, the same night as the Knicks game, because that's definitely where I'm gonna be going after this. But I just wanted to introduce Africa as a Country as a site, first of all, which is a digital site that talks about the cultural, social, political context of the African continent and all of its diasporas. And what we're happy to have for you today is just a panel of conversations, both here and in the other room, that talk about the criticality of this World Cup under the empire of it all, under the migration of it all in this current moment. And we want to have that intervention through soccer in different lenses. So through New York's immigrant culture, through Haiti's presence here and the diaspora and their groundbreaking route to the World Cup group matches, as well as looking towards the future and thinking about the decolonial effort of African soccer. There's a reason that soccer persists here in New York, despite its relatively minimal presence in America at large. I grew up in working class immigrant communities where soccer was just a part of everyday life. It lived in immigrant neighborhoods, public parks, schoolyards, social clubs, corner bars opening at 7 a.m. for Premier League matches. I should add the caveat that as a Francophone, my family is Liga, so we were rooting for PSG in the Champions League, but soccer in New York has always been about gathering across languages, neighborhoods, classes, and histories. It is one of the few sports that genuinely mirrors the city itself. Chaotic, multilingual, improvisational, and deeply shaped by the movement of people from everywhere else. So tonight, we want to think about soccer not simply as a sport, but as something tied to migration, labor, memory, and belonging. What does soccer mean in a city shaped by movement and diaspora? How has New York shaped the way the game looks and feels in America? And as the World Cup approaches, who gets included in this new vision of the sport? Hopefully, we can hold together the romance of the game, of the beautiful game, with the politics around it. Our first panel will be about New York and soccer culture in the 5 boroughs that we all call home. Leading that conversation is Tosin Makinde, cultural commentator, and I'll leave you all to it.
How's everyone doing? I'm Tosin, and you guys come out, all 3 of you, because I'm lazy right now. So we have 3 wonderful people with me, Zito, Sofia, and Marvin. Okay. How's everyone doing, all 3 of you? Pretty good. Good. I'm glad I'm away from them. They're 3 Arsenal fans. It disgusts me. Makes me, is any Arsenal fans in here?
Woo!
Stop making noise. Jokes aside, congratulations to you guys. I know it's been 22 years, so congratulations to you guys. Let's get into this. So I'm Tosin, as Shamira introduced me. So first question I want to ask everybody is your relationship with the sport. So how did you guys get into the sport, all 3 of you? Marvin, you can go ahead.
Yeah, my father introduced me to the sport. I was given a ball before I could walk, I think, and I fell in love with the sport at a young age. I went to Germany in the summer and fell in love with the football culture there and played throughout my whole life here. And yeah, that was my introduction. And I think I love football because it's a beautiful way to understand the world. And I love to play it, but I also love to connect the world through football.
Go ahead.
So growing up in, sound okay? All right. Growing up in Brooklyn, soccer was everywhere, and I fell in love with it and was introduced to it in Brooklyn. I played when I was younger. My mom took me to all the Little League games. I went to the Ethiopian American football summer football program, like that would happen all over the States. And it was just sort of a natural way of life. So, yeah.
All right, so I feel like it's sort of similar. Like I've been playing since I was very young. I think I was back in the village in Nigeria, in like Southeast Nigeria, and I was playing soccer there. And then we moved to Detroit, and I played a lot in Dearborn, Michigan, which has a lot of like, you know, Muslims and Arabs in there. So much of my like coming of age was playing soccer with that community as well. And then I played at University of Detroit Mercy. Then I played all around. I played in Orlando. I played in Salt Lake City, a terrible place. And I played in Rhode Island. I'm not gonna say anything about that place. And then I played for Detroit City FC. And then I ended up playing in Turkey for Antalya for a little bit. And then I came all the way back. But I was also writing about soccer at the time. So much of my understanding of the world was also like infused with understanding of the game. And then, yeah, and I still play now, just not as fast, not as strong, but you know, I'm still here.
Yeah. What's you guys' favorite memory? I was gonna ask their favorite team, but I already told you they're all Arsenal fans, so gross. But what's your favorite memory of the sport?
Just want to make sure this is working. It's
Not?
No.
Let's try this one. We'll try this one. See if that works.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite memory of the sport came from it was the 2016 Euros. My football club from New York had gone to the Netherlands to play some friendly matches, and part of like the excursion was going to a group stage game and a knockout game. And the group stage game was a no-brainer for my family to buy. It was a Germany-Slovakia game, much cheaper than a knockout game. And we thought that game would be enough. Quarterfinals were around $300 each. We didn't think many of the other players on the team would be going to this game as well. The match day rolled around, and I was one of two kids who didn't have a ticket to the game. And the coach thought it would be a good idea to either A, leave us at the hotel and drive to France with the rest of the team, or bring us there and leave us on the bus while the rest of the team went there. I brought my passport. I brought the 200 euros that my parents gave me for like emergency money, and I convinced my coach to let me bargain and try and buy myself a ticket. And I was 13 at the time, didn't speak any French, Flemish, or anything like that. And I managed to get a ticket for $200. Didn't have any money for the rest of the trip, but that was fine. And the ticket was on the other side of the stadium for my team, but I was with a bunch of Welsh fans who were having the time of their lives as they upset Belgium in the quarterfinals. And it was the first time I really felt like I was having a truly independent experience at a young age. Not knowing anyone in the stadium, not knowing the language, I felt like I had this shared experience with people just because of football. And every time I think back about what started it all and why I love the sport so much, I think about just being a kid in those stands and experiencing, I don't know, the world opened up in front of me. And that was all just because of one football match.
Amazing. Sofia.
So in a similar vein, one of my favorite memories comes from the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. After finishing school, instead of looking for a job, I decided to take all of the money I had to go to South Africa for the World Cup. And at the time, felt questionable. Now seems like, I mean, it was absolutely the right thing to do. And my best friend and I traveled down from Tanzania. We went to games in Joburg and Cape Town, and had a blast. I mean, I have two sort of favorite memories from there. One is seeing Ivory Coast and Brazil in Joburg. Even though Ivory Coast lost, I think, having to do with the refs and their proclivity to Brazil, but it was incredible to see that sort of golden age of Ivorian football, and Drogba, even though he's an enemy of Arsenal, as a Ivorian, fully supported him. But one of my favorite memories from there was when Ghana beat the US. We were watching in a bar in Cape Town, and at that point, all of the other African teams that, were in contention to make it to the next round. And it was just like pure joy. Just everyone dropped what they were doing and ran out into the streets. I remember like drawing black stars on people's faces with my eyeliner pen. And it just felt like we were all kind of coming together to witness this moment. A lot of hope, a lot of joy, a lot of partying. I don't think I slept at all that weekend, but that's definitely one of my favorite memories, I think.
I feel like everybody's favorite memory is so wholesome.
Yeah.
And mine is just every time I've been dribbling defenders since I was young. It's just like, sometimes I just like sit in bed and think about like all the defenders that I've beaten in my life. And it's like, this is, it's just like, it brings me so much joy. But I mean, as like a fan, I think my favorite memory is probably 2016 Copa America final, because I had just come back from Turkey and I was like started writing seriously, and I had a staff job at the time, and one of my first big events was to go cover the Copa America. And I didn't cover the group stage or anything. I just said I want to go to the final. Yeah. And so I went to New Jersey and I ended up going to the final. And like, you know, that's when Argentina lost to Chile for like, I think it was like the third time in a row. And Messi was in tears. And like, you know, I was one of the last journalists that was there when he announced that he was quitting. Yeah. And the only reason that I like that is because narratively it was so fun, right? Like I like, you know, my sort of like soccer fandom is like maximum chaos, which is I want to see the maximum amount of joy, but also the maximum amount of despair. And so watching Messi go, you know, is he going to be the greatest of all time, et cetera, to just like losing to the same team over and over and over to the point that he's just like standing on the field, tears in his eyes. And he's like, yeah, I just can't play this anymore. And I was in that press place, like everyone's feeling so bad. And I'm like, narratively, this is amazing. Yeah. And then when he won in 2022, I wrote about it, of like this kind of cycle of like how actually seeing him break down and crying like renewed his relationship to the Argentina fans, because the criticism for him for so long was that he seemed robotic and distant. And then suddenly, like, here's the man, like he breaks down completely and they're like, we actually kind of like him now because he's our loser. And then he like wins and it kind of completes the story. So I'm more of like narrative. Like I really like that, being in there watching him cry. And I was like, this is amazing. This is like my favorite memory ever.
See, I can't say my favorite memory here because there's Ghanaian people here and I'm gonna get kicked out of here and nobody's gonna like what I'm gonna say. But you probably
like when they lose, it's amazing.
Yeah, like 2010 when they lost to Uruguay, greatest day of my life.
Yeah,
but, you know, I can't say
when everyone hated Luis Suarez and I'm like, this is actually amazing for all of us. This is...
Well, we're Nigerian and we're haters, so
you know, maximum chaos.
We're gonna talk about New York now, and like the growth of football. I moved here in 2014, right before the World Cup, and 12 years later, it's crazy to see how much the World Cup has grown, like the fandom in the sport. So I know you two were both like raised in New York, so kind of like tailored towards you two. My question for you is like, what do you think has caused the growth of the sport in New York from your perspective?
Want to kick this one off?
Zito, you should go. You're the one that's Mr. Fancy Pants over here. So go ahead.
What does it mean for New York?
Not like the growth, like in New York, like how, like what do you think has changed, like the growth of the sport in the city?
Well, it's interesting because like when I was actually a teenager, the first time that I came to New York was because I came for a soccer tournament. So I took the Greyhound 14 hours to come to New York and play in a soccer tournament. I think it was probably in like the Bronx or Harlem. It's like, I was just like, you know, God is gonna guide me. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just gonna give myself over to the journey. Yeah. And yeah, I remember like the tournament sucked. I think the fields were so bad, and I was like, I have a very delicate constitution, especially when I'm playing soccer. So it's like, if the conditions are off, I just don't even want to bother with it. And it's so tough to like go on the field and you just know you're gonna have a bad day because like you're trying to warm up and pass the ball and the ball is just like bouncing everywhere. And I'm just like, I can't, this isn't the proper place for someone like myself to be playing in. And so the tournament sucked, but I think, you know, when I came to New York over and over, like I was like almost every year I was coming to New York, and then seeing that change from like those kinds of fields to like now I play in the parade grounds a lot, and there's like all these beautiful fields, they're always being renovated. Like I played in Chinatown, and you know, you have like the Nike field over there. And then now there's like all these fields that are popping up, like the ground, or like even like in the kid superstore. Like this is, when I was 15, this was not what it was like, right? Like I was playing all over the city, and it's basically just like all these patch parks and like these terrible fields. And I'm just like kind of sauntering around because I don't want to get injured. But I mean, this is, you know, I think when you think about like the ideal places that try to live up to what the kind of American dream of like this melting pot is, that's what this city is. Yeah. And, you know, you have the biggest sport in the world, and a lot of people here love the sport. Like eventually you're gonna have to cater to that. Like this isn't, I could go anywhere, any borough, and like find a soccer community, right? Yeah. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I want to play pickup, and I'll go like, you know, I'm in Manhattan, I'm in Brooklyn, there's places that I'm not gonna go to, but like I get close enough to those places. And I've played soccer all over this city, right? Like I played soccer in Jersey, so it's like watching that grow because the community kind of demands it, to the point now is like, you know, the mayor's talking about soccer and everyone's like, it's not even just like Arsenal stuff. Like you can find photos of him when he used to play pickup. Like with some of my friends, when he got elected, they were like sending me photos of like them playing soccer together. And I was like, this is fucked up because nobody invited me. But so it's like grown exponentially, just even from a personal playing standpoint where like I can go anywhere in the city and play soccer, but it's also like the easiest way to build community and build friends. Like I could go to like any soccer bar right now, make a little bit of banter, and next thing you know, I'm like drinking, like partying with people.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably how we became friends, more than likely.
Yeah, but like, we don't want to talk about how we met, so.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I would say, well, I'm the opposite of you. I don't have a delicate constitution. I was running around playing soccer in the streets as a kid, which is why my parents had so many hospital bills. But I do think it's New York has always been like a soccer city. Some things are changing, but at its core, it's always been home to soccer. I mean, you know, before Messi went to Miami, like Pele came to the Cosmos. Like this is a city where, like, I remember my mom talking about teaching in high school, and after '86, like everyone named their kid Maradona, boy or girl, like your name was Maradona, because that was, you know, that was New York. New York is full of folks who come from all over the world and who really like find community in the sport. Even going back to like the 20s and 30s, it was in the immigrant communities, the local football clubs that popped up. I think what's changing now is this sort of like hyper commodification of the sport, which like I know we had talked about earlier, and the sort of like pulling from like the game and from the people and turning it into a product, almost in the way that New York City itself has been turned into a product. And I really like what the mayor is doing in terms of trying to create access, create more spaces for kids to play, discounted tickets, pushing back against FIFA, bringing soccer back to the people, because that's who it's for.
Yeah, I think building on that note, I think New York has always really been a football city, but I think the biggest growth that we've seen in recent years is a new group of people falling in love with the sport. And I think that's really just because of the sport itself, and that's because it's been around, the resources are now around for people to have access to it. But people have always been playing. The biggest shift, I think, in people who play football, growing up, I think second generation, first generation immigrants in New York City were most likely introduced to football by their parents. And I think now for the first time I'm seeing kids who didn't have a reason to play football besides just to love the game. I see people whose parents played lacrosse or ran track, played American football, but now in New York, they're playing football as well. And then to your point of football becoming commodified, I think there is a new demographic of people playing football just for fun, to make connections, people who've moved to New York and want to play after work, colleagues who use football to bond. And I think that's a new thing in New York. I think 10 years ago, you wouldn't see NYC footy leagues taking up pitches at Chinatown or Parade Grounds or Pier 5. And now, unfortunately, you go to Pier 5 at 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and it's hard to find any space if you haven't paid to play or registered for a game.
And just wanted to add to that too, like in terms of more people watching the sport. I remember like 10 years ago, trying to watch an AFCON game, even a final, like at a bar. It was, unless you went uptown or you went to Queens, it was very hard to do that. So it is like kind of great to see all the different tournaments popping up. People aren't just watching like the World Cup or watching the Premier League. They're watching other tournaments now and engaging in that, which is really cool.
Yeah, Marvin, you said something about people's parents, right? Last summer I worked on a project and I had to go to a park in Brooklyn. I saw this guy and his son playing, and he was coaching his kid, and I was like, how did you get into the sport? He goes, my son. He's like, I never cared for this sport ever growing up in New York. It's like my kid just randomly picked up soccer and like now I love it. So there's little things like that that's helping the growth in the city. They want to talk about Zoran a little bit because you all mentioned that, and I think it's really cool to have a mayor that's, one, young, but two, also is like very much involved in this space. I think didn't have anything major to talk about with that. It's just more so just, it's really cool to have him here, like having the mayor that generally likes the sport. So yeah. This is a conversation that we actually had, Sofia and Marvin and I, about youth soccer in New York. I know you both played growing up, so can you kind of explain like the youth soccer scene in New York to people who don't really understand it?
Sure. Yeah, my youth journey started in 2006 with soccer fun for all. Yeah, I was born in 2003, so
You're born
I might
when?
be given like a different demographic.
Wait, hold on. You said you were born what year?
2003.
Jesus Christ. I got kids older. I got kids in my crib older than you. That's insane, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, it started with ASO, and then the next step was club soccer. And from what I remember, MLS Next didn't exist. GA was something that like a lot of kids like looked out and wanted to touch at some point and become a part of that league. But really, club soccer in New York is what connected all of us. It was practice 2 to 3 times a week. It was a game on the weekends. Parade grounds to the Bronx. You would play against different demographics who made up different teams. So FA Euro, Cherno Moritz, Bronx United, Islas Malvinas. Each weekend, it felt like you were connecting with another part of New York, which I loved. And I think the parents loved connecting on the sidelines, sometimes fighting on the sidelines. And that's my memory. And I think that has changed, which we can get into later on. But that's my connection to the sport at a club level.
Yeah, go ahead, Sofia.
I'm good.
Okay. Nah, because it's interesting because I also grew up playing youth soccer, not in New York, in Baltimore. And like, it's so interesting to see how now you have ECNL and all these other things. And like, that's changing in the city as well. I was growing up here during the Red Bull Academy era. Like, so seeing Juan Aguilera before he went pro and like all these other things, it's like, the city has changed with youth soccer and like, it's gotten even more expensive. When we talk about academies, like MLS academies, what New York City FC is doing and Red Bull, like, Zito, I know you probably are familiar with that. You talk anything about their academies?
You want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think it's like, you know, what we were talking about like the soccer growing here, but all these teams realizing the wealth that they have as far as like players, right? Like, I think the conversation around US soccer is always like, where is the next star? Where is the next star? And we've talked about this before. It's like, it's about accessibility. Like the players exist. They're always pretending that these players just don't exist out in the world. Like I grew up in Detroit and I was saying like playing in Dearborn, but elsewhere, if I wanted to play, I'm going out to the suburbs. Like my dad is literally, because he won't drive on the freeway. So we're just on like the regular road for like an hour and a half. Yeah. So I could go play with all these kids who live in the suburbs, right? And so, you know, one of the first articles that I wrote when I started writing seriously was that American soccer pretends that it doesn't have what it has because it just wants to keep the sport like a sport for rich kids, right? So we're talking about accessibility and we're talking about the pricing out of kids. But I think a lot of like these two teams, I'm more New York City FC than like Red Bulls now, but they're just like, oh, it's here, right? Like you have this sort of like melting pot. You have all these kids that are playing, they're playing on their own. And all you really have to do is take advantage of that. So it's like creating that academy seems like it was a very easy and obvious thing to do and like to sort of formalize that academy system. Because when I was playing, like when I was young, I think I was like 12, I got offered to be in the Chicago Fire Academy. And my dad was like, no, like, why is he moving to Chicago? Like immigrant parent, he's like, he needs to go to school.
Focus on your
board. I was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But it was essentially, it was like so unstructured that there was nothing that gave him confidence that send your kid to Chicago to live with a bunch of like random people and to take care of him. And you don't really know how the system works. But now it's much more formalized, right? Like I have all these friends who went through that academy system from the U17s all the way to like even playing on a national team. And it's very much, again, like taking advantage of what you already have and stop pretending that the talent isn't here and that the sort of ambition isn't here. But again, you still have that conflict between, do you want these kids to succeed or do you want to make as much money as possible by charging parents thousands and thousands of dollars just to send their kids to like academies or to like play travel?
I say there's a lost generation of soccer talent. I think there's
It's
like
me. I'm the lost generation of soccer
yeah, like
talent.
like you guys laugh, but I'm being dead serious. Like there's a generation I think like was born maybe from like 83 to about like 97-ish, where like there's a generation of talent kids you never ever see because one, we didn't have social media the way it is today, but two, because like these kids were so talented. Like I know kids who are going to Chelsea at 14, 15 years old. They're lawyers and doctors now, and I know they don't want to do that. They want to be playing ball. They want to be going to World Cup, but you know, you use your scholarship money to go to school, and then you end up becoming an engineer and doing all these things.
Well, it's tough to like convince your immigrant parents that you want to play on a soccer. And this is like I was playing back when like the minimum or maximum wage was like MLS was paying like $40,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to tell my dad that I need to go play. He's like showing me how much an engineer makes, and I'm like, well, this like it's hard to argue that. It's like
Yeah.
I remember going on trial for like Dayton Dutch Lions, which ended up becoming like the Cincinnati team. And I remember when they offered me the contract and it was like $20,000. And I was like, I literally just make more than networking part-time at the school. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so my dad was like, get a job. And it's, again, like you had all this soccer talent and beyond being charged for it, it was also just not paying well. There was no path, and there was no real path like MLS or any of this. And then now with, you know, like the minimum wage for MLS players is so much higher. That path is much more clear. And even the path to Europe is much more clear. Like you're not sending your kid to Iceland for a trial at a second division team now, that you're starting to see that kind of talent emerge. But yes, I think there is a lost generation of players who are like, wow, I wish we had this when we were playing.
Absolutely. Sofia, we had this conversation before we started all this about the affordability crisis. And I kind of want you to talk about that, the affordability crisis in New York and how it's affecting the soccer space. So it's kind of your floor.
Yeah, so I mean, like you were saying, you know, our parents are weighing, do they want to send their kids to these academies that cost thousands of dollars? Even if the pipeline is better and the infrastructure is in place now in New York, it's still a matter of, you know, how much does this cost? And I think this was a couple of months ago, the mayor's office released a report on the true cost of living in New York City, which takes into account a lot of factors that like the federal poverty line does not. So according to that report, 60% of New Yorkers are like living on the edge or living paycheck to paycheck, like, you know, are one step away from crisis. So you're thinking about the relation of like this city and how people live to soccer. So how can you justify spending that amount of money, you know, for when you're trying to put money on the, put food on the table for your family. But I think that speaks again to what has happened in New York. New York has become completely, you know, unaffordable. There's an affordability crisis here, and it gets even deeper once you go into different boroughs, like the Bronx, I'd say, is at the heart of the affordability crisis. And once you look into schools, I know we've talked a lot about New York City being like vibrant and diverse and a melting pot, and it is a melting pot, but New York City also has one of the most segregated school systems in the United States. So how do you know, kind of manage that with making football more accessible to the kids that have, you know, the talent and want to play, but don't necessarily have the money or the resources?
Marvin, you mentioned something also about moving Malik. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. And then real quick, just to wrap up this conversation on academies and the affordability crisis, one thing that I'd want to like bring attention to with the growth of academies in America, while they're providing amazing structured pathways, as you said, for kids and for parents to understand, I think the club level that I knew 10 to 15 years ago gave a lot of more opportunities for players to start and have equal opportunity because the costs were lower for 2 to 3 practices in your backyard, you know, in your neighborhood. And now we're seeing more and more MLS Next teams, GA teams, and it kind of seems like the club structure of soccer has been pushed aside. And if you really want to be taken seriously, if you want to achieve your dreams of becoming pro, you want to go MLS Next and GA as quick as possible. And unfortunately, not a lot of people have access to that. And I think that's also completely fragmenting the city, and the communities that used to play against each other 10 to 15 years ago now don't mix. Now it's Pennsylvania, Maryland, and if you're either in it and you're on the path or you're not. And I think in the past there used to be, it wasn't as bottlenecked. Yeah, so that's just something I miss and used to love about soccer in New York, and I feel like is slowly slipping away. But yeah, on to someone who's giving me hope. A friend of mine named Malik, who is really just like empowering the generation right now of who's experiencing this affordability crisis. He does a lot of amazing things. One thing that has stood out to me a couple years ago was he started hosting his own pickup games. The pickup games, as we mentioned, have been pay to play for like the last 5 years, I would say, maybe since COVID. But he just connects everyone through an Instagram group chat. He makes sure he has a field at Pier 40. And first and foremost, it creates a space for people to come together, which is amazing. But what is even better is that he takes it a step further. He creates highlight reels for these kids. He scouts kids via these pickup games. If he sees an unscouted talent that he likes or thinks has what it takes, he'll go to their game the next weekend, create a highlight tape with his phone. A lot of kids don't have the resources or the time to create highlight reels in high school. And I think that's why a lot of people don't get the opportunity to play in college. So he's just uplifting the community in a lot of important ways, from creating a space to actually giving these kids a platform. And yeah, doing tangible things to make New York football easier for kids to play and to experience at a higher level.
I think that's important. Like each generation helps the next one to be better.
Exactly. He was motivated by growing up in the Bronx and struggling himself to make it to D1. He worked incredibly hard to get to the D1 level, and now is helping kids with the experience that he had 8 years ago.
Yeah. You said something about communities. This is also very important. I think it's helped New York grow is the women's soccer scene in the city, especially with Gotham. They're getting a new stadium soon. So, Sofia, I kind of want to have you talk about this a little bit more, because I know when we were speaking, you were very passionate about this. So, love for you to tell us a little bit more about like what you've seen the women's soccer scene in the city.
Yeah, I feel like women get it. To be frank, women's sports have been at the forefront, I'd say, of a lot of progressive political movements, and women have been very vocal about things that are happening in the country, things that are happening globally. Even today, and this is less about Gotham, but I saw with this like America 250 coming up, Breonna Taylor, who's a forward for the Las Vegas Aces, spoke out about having to wear the America 250 patches on their jerseys. And she was like, this has not been 250 years of freedom for me. I'm a Black woman. Like, this is not how this has worked for us. So I really appreciate the fearlessness that women in soccer and basketball, like across different sports, have spoken up and have really, shown that this is all very political. I think sports in general are political, but I think soccer is particularly political, and it's very easy to see that. So with Gotham FC, I mean, I think they're building a movement. I really like what the mayor is doing to uplift them, and it's great to see like women's sports bars opening up, different supporters clubs, and the growth in like the sport over the past couple of years. It's just, yeah, just a fan. I love to see it.
You said something about women get it, and we talked about this briefly, but how different is the community versus men's football? I mean, Marvin, Zito, if you want to chime in, you can, but just kind of how different is the women's football community versus the men's community?
Well, just from going to like, a couple of Gotham FC games, you see in the supporter stands, folks have Ice Out, Free Palestine, are very like vocal in their support for different causes. I haven't seen it like that much of that in, at least like in the Premier League or in the MLS. I know the history of football, and I know that there's been like a lot of political, movements and activations historically. I mean, I think about like the FLN creating a football club and leaving France and being a part of the Algerian Revolution. Like, there's a very rich history, I think, of politics and movement building, but right now we're getting to this point, I think particularly with men's soccer, where it's just become such a commodity and everyone is so afraid of losing, losing access to the sponsors, the this, the that, that perhaps they're not as incentivized to speak up about what's happening in the world.
Zito.
Yeah, I mean, she's absolutely right. Like, I took some of my friends to the Gotham FC game, like people who don't even like soccer. I took them to the Gotham FC game last season, and it was the same thing. Like, the first thing that they noticed were like the trans rights flag, the Palestine flag. So it's like, I think Sofia said it, there's a much more openness to expressing your political views, right? I think when we think about Arsenal right now, it's like the big thing with Arsenal was them doing the deal with the Israeli company. And I remember being like, oh, that's fucked up. And a lot of Arsenal fans being like, you can't say that about the club, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, that's insane that Arsenal's doing that deal and you feel like part of being a fan is that you can't criticize the club. And, this is a conversation that I think something that I was saying yesterday was that, football tends to exist on two separate planes, right? Which is there's the institution, there's the clubs, there's the people who want to make as much money as possible. But then there's the sort of like grassroots, but also the fans, the people that are like the bloodline of the game. Mm-hmm. And I think as a fan, you have to push back against what the institution often does, because what it does for profit doesn't always align with what the club is. So I think sometimes fans tend to forget that you have a responsibility as well as ownership to the game, right? The World Cup is happening, but there's also the World Cup outside of the stadiums. Yeah. And you have to push back against stuff that Infantino does. You have to push back against stuff that Trump does. And I think you see that more in women's football, where they're more like, we're fans, but we're also stewards of the game. Yeah. And there's a responsibility to like make this, when you're talking about being inclusive, when you're talking about all the cliches of what football is, you have to actually live up to those things. If you're saying that this is the game that connects everyone and is beautiful because of the depth of everyone involved, there's a responsibility to make sure that those people are welcome and feel comfortable. And you can't do that when the institutions are like, hey, we're gonna do this thing, or we're gonna play Thomas Partey for seasons, you have to be like, that's fucked up. Yeah. Otherwise you're aligning yourself with these things and these ideals that you should not be, right? So when certain people are not being allowed to participate in the World Cup, when visas aren't being granted, you actually have to speak up about those things. And you've seen that more with women's football than you actually see with men's, right? Like, I remember when, what's her name, when she was asked.
Megan Rapinoe?
Yeah, Rapinoe was asked if they were going to the Trump White House, and she was like, fuck no. Like, there wasn't even a delay. But I think if you ask one of the, you've seen that with the men's national team, not only being there, but like being so hesitant to say anything because they feel like that's not their space. And I think America is such a good example that it's always been like a women's football nation, because the women's footballers were better and actually winning when the men's were still like insignificant. And I think you see that so much. It's like when you ask, like, I taught a class this spring, and I remember asking the students, are you excited for the US men's national team? And everyone was like, yeah. It was just like a class of like 20 students. And they're like, I'd be happy if we won, but they don't really like move anything in me, because a lot of their formative memories were the women's national team. Yeah. And, like, I'm at Wesleyan, so it's a class full of nerds, and they like the politics of soccer. And so much, they were just like, the men's players don't speak up about anything. Yeah. Right. Like, you saw it even with Pochettino, who's like, shut up. And the only person who's like doing anything is like Tim Weah. And the rest of the players, even like the black players, are just like, if we shut up and just make this, then like the game will speak for itself. So yeah, like, I think the women's football has just always been more political, more expressive. And I think because of that, they connect with people in a real way than the men do.
Yeah, I mean, you got number 10 on the U.S. men's national team doing the Trump dance. So.
Yeah, and then he's like, it's not political. It's just, I just thought it was funny. Like, it's like, even when they do bad, they're not courageous enough to like be the thing.
You want to laugh though, quickly, before you speak? I went to Hershey years back for a thing with a former company I worked for, and the first sign I seen Hershey is a Trump sign. So it's just like, well, that tracks.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that the global game has excluded 50% of the population until recently. And I think because of that, the women's game has been given this opportunity, not given this opportunity, but fought for this opportunity to build the game up, and they're doing it in a way that the men's game has never done, and that is being politically active, that is acknowledging that football is inherently political. That's because like women athletes have had to fight for equal pay and their own rights, so being an athlete has been intertwined with standing up for yourself and what you believe is right. And for the men, it's sponsorship deals were handed to them, and they're afraid to lose them. So as you said, the World Cup is starting tomorrow, and I can't think of a single player besides Tim Weah who's properly stood up and acknowledged what's going on with this World Cup. And if it was the Women's World Cup starting tomorrow, I think it would be a much different situation.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think when the Women's World Cup kicks off next year, it will be a very different situation. Like, we will hear a lot more about what's going on in the world, as opposed to the guys kicking off tomorrow.
Yeah, I still can't believe there's a whole World Cup tomorrow. The last topic I want to talk about is the diaspora influence. We're all from different parts of the globe, all four of us. For you guys, how different has the diaspora influenced the city, especially in the soccer scene?
I just want to say I'm a citizen of the world. I'm a man of the people, right? I just want to put this out there that Zoran stole my whole vibe.
Yeah.
Right. So I live in Flatbush, and I live at the intersection of so many different cultural and religious backgrounds. Yeah. And my thing that I've always taken pride in is that I'm always invited to everything. At Eid, I'm there, right? Passover, I was there. Easter, you will see me. When he started doing it, I was like, I can't believe this. I can't believe he was still. But yeah, I think in New York, you see the diaspora everywhere, right? And it's one of my favorite things of being with all these different groups of people. Yeah. I wrote that essay about when I was young and playing with the Palestinian team in the full World Cup that we used to hold in Michigan. Yeah. And that being part of my formative years, but also my formative political years. But yeah, here it's so much easier. I don't have to drive out to Wixom or Dearborn to do it. I could literally just go outside in Flatbush, and I'm just yeah, me and the Caribbean, or me and these Jamaican men are just yelling at each other, playing we're playing 10 minutes of soccer and we're yelling at each other for 30 more minutes. And I'm just this is the beautiful game. And so, yeah, I mean, it's the lifeblood, right? Those are people that I watch games with. Those are the people that I play with. Those are the people that are, buying all these tickets or finding a way to buy all these tickets. I just spent an ungodly amount of money on France-Senegal because I want to be there in the Francophone battle, right? So yeah, you can't go anywhere in this city without touching on this kind of diaspora movement. And I think, they give the depth to the game, and they're also not just in the watching audience, but also the playing audience. And I think, that's the sort of community that I belong to, and the community that I like belonging to.
Yeah, I think New York City is a diaspora city. It's a world in itself. And I know I get a lot of flack from some of my friends sometimes because I'm always New York City is the best city in the world. And specifically Brooklyn is the best borough in the world.
Thank you.
It is.
It is, yeah. Sorry, my mom's from the Bronx, so yeah. I'll listen. I'll talk about Arsenal and Tottenham. I don't really care. But I think that there's I think about growing up in Brooklyn, growing up in Fort Greene, growing up in Kensington, particularly in Kensington. We lived on East 4th Street for many years, and I used to play soccer in the streets with all the kids. So one neighbor is Palestinian, one is Mexican, one is Puerto Rican. It's people from all over the world are right here and are sharing their love of the game and are sharing their experiences, sharing their food, sharing their music. Soccer really brings the whole world to you, and I think New York City is a beautiful example of that.
Yeah, 100%. I think New York introduced me to the world at a young age, and football in New York introduced me to the world even more so. Tying it back to what we started talking about, how the growth of football in New York seems to be quite commercial more than anything. I think that is probably the biggest threat to the diaspora communities that love and own football and have for the past 50 to 100 years in this city. I think it's great that the game is growing and reaching people who've never played football before, but I think we just must be wary that the fields are being taken by people who can pay for them, and the opportunities for local pickup, for unplanned coming together from everyone in your neighborhood to just, I don't know, kick the ball around, yell at each other, as you said, for 30 minutes at the parade grounds is at threat. But there are a lot of people and a lot of beautiful things in the city that still give me hope for the growth of football in general.
You know, when you guys speak about like how it's been commodified and like how everything's very expensive, I think about when most Steph was talking about so many SKUs. That's what I think about soccer industry. That's what I think about the soccer industry
We
now.
need like more accessibility and less football fashion. Like I'm so tired of like, here's this fashionable take on like a football jersey. Like take that money and just make the field accessible. Like I think you would do more.
But you buy those jerseys.
This isn't about that. I get those for free.
Yeah, it's like
Just because I spend money or I get things for free doesn't mean that I don't recognize it as bad.
it is wild because this soccer community has changed a lot. I mean, coming from London, and I was a fish out of water when I first came to America. I was like, what do you mean you have to pay to play? In my mind, I was just like, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
But then you're seeing your parents spend X amount of dollars each year on travel fees, on hotel fees, on boots, and this and that. You're just like, this is very, very silly. Want to end on a fun note. Shout out to Cape Verde, Curacao, Jordan, and Uzbekistan, all qualified for the first time. And big shout out to Haiti and Congo. The first time they've been in the World Cup since 1974. And Iraq since 1986. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's good
Imagine
to see.
if Nigeria was there.
What?
Imagine.
Don't say that again, please. I'm still traumatized. We back-to-back World Cups been qualified.
Yeah, it's great.
But guess what? I'm still gonna talk shit.
Yeah.
So
I have an American citizenship.
But
Yeah.
Nigeria has really great kids there, so there's that.
beautiful gowns.
Beautiful gowns.
That's what Nigeria is. We're just there to be pretty. That's literally what we're there to do. Is just to
You
be
know what
pretty.
I love so much is that Nike were so far gone and like banking on Nigeria making a World Cup that they still released a jersey. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah, they were trying everything to rig the
Yeah.
World Cup for us. Like they changed the point system, and then they
Yeah.
even put us in the playoff, and we
Yeah.
still messed it up.
They rigged the system for Nigeria and Nigeria still didn't make it.
No.
Colonialism is terrible.
It is. I'm blaming the British. That's what I'm ending with. We're ending with the British. I kind of want to leave some time for questions. If anybody has questions, don't be shy, please. I promise. We can ask about anything. We talk about the Knicks if you want to. Go ahead.
So it's actually not a question, it's a thank you to you two specifically. We've been in the trenches with Man United, needed some backup. But the two of you on social would start on this timeline
Please, I'm a child of God.
just over a decade ago. Just over a decade ago, you guys really changed how the world sees and speaks about football. A lot of people will never know where it started. And I think it's so important that you know that you changed. And shout out to Carl Uncle also.
Yeah.
But
I raised him. That's my son.
you guys have been active for so long. You changed the face of what Africans look like, what we sound like, what we know, what we can do. Not just about football, but you started a movement from your timelines, just from your fingertips. And I think that's so important as you see the world change, their attitude to football, to fashion and politics, because football is political in a lot of places, especially the places we are from.
Yeah.
Football is political, and you made that known. I think you also shine a spotlight on blackness in football and what it can be. It's also been commodified.
Yeah.
Suddenly Mbappe is a good boy and he's great, but they don't know who we've been.
Yeah.
We've been with the Sterlings, we've been with the Balotellis, we've seen things.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what you guys have done. And I just wanted to say thank you to you guys, having come up in the streets watching you guys. It is such a pleasure, such an honor. And I wanted to honor you guys and say thank you.
Appreciate that. They actually are good South African people.
I mean, only one of us has lost his account several times, and that's not me. So.
First and foremost, I don't have a social anymore. Okay, put it out there.
But yeah,
no,
I think
thank
what you said actually about the blackness thing is so fascinating because, like 10 years ago when we were making all these jokes, and whatever. Like we, like, you know how sort of we will roast each other, and like they're just like, do you guys hate each other? I'm like, no, like we're actually having fun. But it's like having to defend the Black players over and over. Like I remember explicitly when I would like point out that, you know, the way the media covers Black players is different. Like, I remember, what was it, 2014 World Cup, I created like a bingo card of how often they talk about pace and power. And like, I was just like I once got into it with Stu Holden while he was commentating. And like, I think he was commentating on Senegal.
Yeah.
And he had, the first thing that he said was like pace and power. And I had like mentioned him directly. And I was talking about how stupid that was when you're talking about Senegal. And he replied while he was commentating. He's like, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And then in the second half, he changed the way that he talked. And everyone was like, yeah, you got in his head really bad. But it was just this thing where I'm like, how are you guys watching the same thing that we're watching? And you're sort of like reducing these players to these like old stereotypes. And the essay that I wrote about Senegal actually ended up being used in a 538 study where they took off the sort of physical attributes of the players and they had 500 people watch them and describe what they were seeing. And then they let you see who was playing and they had them describe them again. And it is like there's a stark difference between watching the players without seeing what race they were. And they're like, oh, these players are so, like they're so technical, blah, blah, blah. But the minute that they saw that they were Black players, they were like, they're fast, they're strong, they're like aggressive, etc. But it was so wild being like, saying that and having people go like, you're playing a race card, you're like being victimized, blah, blah. And then now it's just like, I will see that in the Washington Post. I will see that in the Guardian. Like, I will see people point out that the way they talk about Phil Foden is so different from how they used to talk about Raheem Sterling. And it's just like, you know, it's like the end of like the Avengers Endgame where Thanos just like sits out and you just look at, and that's how I feel sometimes where I'm just like, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in London and like knowing, you know, firsthand how racism was. I mean, Andy Cole's the reason I became a United fan. He didn't make the squad because they basically had the stereotype that he needed 1,000 chances to score. And it's like, this guy literally just about to win the treble and he's not on the English national team. So we've seen it from various perspectives of like, you know, all of that. And I think just being in this space and understanding what it is to be part of this football community, we've seen things, you know, we're Black kids who, I'm sure Zito could tell you this. They probably told us to go be a left back or something else because we're fast.
I could not believe it. I just want to say, one of the reasons that I stopped playing for Detroit City FC was because in one game, 10 minutes left, my coach made me play fullback or asked me to play fullback.
Yeah.
And then the other team was counterattack and we were up 1-0. And the winger's getting the ball and he's about to cross it and I could have stopped it and I just stopped running. And then he crossed it and the ball went in and I just looked at the coach and I like walked over to the field and I'm like, I'm not a fullback. And then he's like, yeah, you're probably not gonna play. But you have to make a point.
Yeah, you do. You had a question, Nikki. An African team, France. Go ahead. There you go.
Germany, it's the only answer I can say. Do I think it's actually true? No, but can I say anything else? No.
Senegal.
Again, I'm more of a maximum chaos guy. So I want, even when they win, I want the team to go through so much that it doesn't even feel like they won.
Yeah.
I want like people to be in despair, but I also want to see what that feels like afterwards when they win.
I just can't have England win, period. Like
England's not gonna win.
No,
Thomas Tuchel is like sabotaging them from inside. That's
He is.
The Germany is happening.
Yeah, I still can't believe England hired a German, which is crazy.
Oh, like the stuff they're gonna say about him when they lose is gonna feel 1946. Like it's gonna be so bad. Like you see how Harry Redknapp was talking about him?
Yeah.
He was like, this German is trying to like sabotage us from the inside. And I was like, England's old school racism is about to come out.
They're gonna sound like Churchill. Every last one is gonna sound.
He's gonna sound like
Churchill.
Winston Churchill so bad.
Yeah, they're gonna channel him. Before we leave, one last big question for everybody on the panel. What's your favorite World Cup memory and your earliest World Cup memory?
I think my favorite World Cup memory must have just been Germany versus Brazil in 2014. It was,
oh my God.
It was a game that I was incredibly nervous for, For context, my father's German and I grew up supporting Germany my whole life. And then to see your team go up against one of the favorites in their country, I held my breath and I thought this could only go pretty shit. But after the Sami Khedira goal, after it was 4-0 and then 5-0 quickly after that, it was just mind-blowing. I think it was the most surprising game I've ever seen. And on a more personal level, I think like they made jokes about the Brazilian fans crying and the cameras constantly cutting to Brazilian men, women, kids in tears, but it just showed the power of the game. For me at 11 years old, it was also powerful to understand how this game can affect both people. And it was 7-1. It was a crazy game, and yeah.
You know what I like so much about that game?
What?
Germany has so many instances to just like run the clock out, and they're like, no, like these people need to suffer at their home. I was like,
I
this
love
is so mean, but it became like art after.
No, it wasn't even mean. That's what you have to do.
No, but it was mean. They were like, we're up 5-0, keep going.
They shouldn't have stopped at 7, honestly. They should have kept going. Sophia, what's yours?
That reminds me of that 8-2 Man U Arsenal, like.
Oh, I love that game.
Just like
Well,
they're down, like just let them, like, why are we still playing?
I just started laughing because I was like, I want to see where this goes. Like, I want to see how badly they want to humiliate us.
And Wenger was standing on top. Man, I might go home and watch that and just, cry again.
I remember watching that game. I was watching with my dad, and I turned the game off when it was like, I don't know, like 4-1 or something. Yeah. And I was like, I hate this. This club is destroying my every being of existence. Like it's heartbreak. And I like went to my room and shut the door, and my dad came back and was like, Sophie, you have to come. Your team is so bad. They're down 8. They're losing 8-2. And I was like, you didn't have to tell me that. I would have found out.
Yeah. What's your earliest World Cup memory and your favorite World Cup memory?
I think like earliest is probably when the U.S. hosted and I think I was in Texas with my dad, and I was just trying to see like what everyone was freaking out about. Like all of the guys had sort of gathered into one room, and I was like, what's happening here? Like, I want to be a part of this. This is great.
Yeah.
Favorite, I think, generally was just my experience in South Africa, like having studied there before and then knowing that I was going to come back, being reunited with friends, seeing family there, going to these games. I was a big Cameroon fan as well, and I did see them on my birthday, and the Netherlands destroyed them. But it was still great. It was still a great experience. The experience, I think, of being in South Africa for the first World Cup on African soil was just really kind of like life-changing, even though my teams didn't, get out. But I'm an Arsenal fan, so I'm quite used to that. So I would say that, yeah.
Cool. And Zito?
Yeah, I would say, like, my earliest memory is probably the Baggio miss. Like, it imprinted itself deep into my soul, and I just wrote an essay about why he's like the saint of failures.
Yeah.
But like my favorite, I actually want to do a German one. Like, I hate the German national team, but what they did to England in 2010, not even the Brazil one, because, Ozil ended up playing for Arsenal. But there's a moment where England is like playing, they came into that game very arrogant. Mm-hmm. And there's a moment that I think it's either John Terry or Frank Lampard is going after Ozil. And, like he runs very languid, like he's not, he seems like kind of like doing a nonchalant thing. And I remember the moment that he just like speeds up and it becomes very clear to England that they're in trouble. And they're just like, oh my God. Like if you watch that game, there's like this, like, we're the better team, blah, blah, blah. And then he like gets to the wing and like crosses the ball for a goal. And it really sets in that they're witnessing one of the best playmakers ever. Yeah. But that overall that they're in like deep trouble. Yeah. And I think that's when Germany like first started deciding, if we're going to beat one of these big teams, we can't just beat them. We need to make them feel bad about themselves. Yeah. And I remember watching England get humbled, that golden generation get humbled by these like young upstarts. And I was like, oh, this is what the sport is about. Yeah.
My earliest memory is also my favorite memory, is 98 World Cup. Greatest World Cup ever, by the way. That's the first World Cup I realized that life's not fair. and there's nothing but pain in this world. That's the first time. Like, I remember Nigeria beating Spain, because first of all, I was supposed to go to that World Cup. So my dad, literally the day of that World Cup, like we're living in London, but I said, Tosin, we can't go. I can't take you to the World Cup. I have the tickets, but you can't go. So that's when I knew it was painful. And then second of all, Nigeria beat Spain, the game we went to. But then we were supposed to play against Denmark, and Nigeria lost 4-1. Like, we got our ass beat. Like, there's no other word to say, but we got our ass beat. And I realized in that World Cup, R9, got poisoned. I still believe we got poisoned. France beat Brazil, and then England got a red card, which is why I hate Diego Simeone to this day. And I realized, as bad as you want something in this life, you're never gonna get it. And that's what that World Cup told me. So I love pain. That's what I love about the World Cup '98.
Football is pain.
It absolutely is. I don't know why I still support United, but I'm still gonna do it. I don't care. So that's what it is. But thank you guys so much for listening to us. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Ooh, loud. Oops. Thank you all. Give one more round of applause for the panelists, please. The next panel is going to be about Haiti's presence in the World Cup. We will take a 5-minute or so intermission. Please feel free to use the bathroom. Please feel free to pick up our print issue, which is available for free, as well as buy a tote bag, shirt, whatever you need. We'll get started at 7:25. Thank you. Hey guys, we'll get started in about 2 minutes or so. In 2 minutes or so. All right, guys, if you could all get seated, we're about to start in a moment. Thank you. Yeah. Nathalie. Or leave it with. I'll leave it with me. Just, can you just leave it there? This is one of the panelists back. Just leave it, yeah. Yeah. All right, everyone, if you could have a seat, we'll get started shortly. Thank you.
Ready. Yes.
All right, everyone, have a seat. Thank you. We're about to start. All right, thank you everyone for coming to our second panel of the day in this room, talking about Haiti's presence in the World Cup in this moment. Sorry about the background noise, we're trying to figure that out. I think a door is open that's triggering it, so hopefully that'll resolve itself in the next few moments. I wanna just start off by giving a lead into the panel, and then I'll make sure to introduce all the panelists. We'll talk for a little bit and save time for questions after about 15 minutes or so. Football is never just football. In Haiti especially, the game has always existed alongside larger political realities. Many of the current team's players were born abroad or left Haiti early. Haiti itself has not been able to consistently host matches. And yet, despite all that, or maybe because of it, the beautiful game and its supporters continue. At the same time, we also want to resist reducing Haiti to crisis alone. Part of what we're here to discuss tonight is Haitian football culture in all of its fullness. The neighborhood tournaments, the radio broadcasts, the joy of watching Brazil in the 90s, the 1974 team, the sounds of rara after a victory, the way football becomes part of everyday social life. And yet, there remain some contradictions. Haiti returns to the World Cup at a moment when Haitians are facing increased hostility abroad, particularly in the US, where this tournament will largely unfold. FIFA speaks the language of global unity while operating within systems shaped by inequality, policing, borders, and empire. So what does it mean to celebrate under these conditions? Tonight, we want to sit with all of it. The weight of the history, the joy of qualification, and the violence surrounding the global spectacle. Thank you again for being here, and I'm excited to introduce you guys to our panelists today. Please give a round of applause for our guests. A lot of papers. First bio, introducing Elischa Edouard. He's a Haitian content creator, host, reporter, and media personality based in New York City. Specializing in soccer, he has built a global audience through his unique blend of humor, storytelling, and high-energy content. Through interviews, event hosting, and digital storytelling, Elischa is dedicated to serving and uplifting the global football community both online and in person. He has worked with leading brands, including Nike, Amazon, Coca-Cola, WhatsApp, and many others, while covering some of the biggest moments in the sport. And this summer, he will represent Haiti as a digital host for CONCACAF during the FIFA World Cup. Please give a round of applause for Elischa. Up next, we have Nathalie Cerin. Nathalie is a Philadelphia-based singer-songwriter and cultural worker, originally from Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Her music, a mixture of Haitian folk and soul music, is a testament to the two cultures that have shaped her as an artist and woman. She has been featured at Jazz and Lincoln Center, Brick Celebrate Brooklyn, Little Island, World Cafe Live, the MoMA, and in 2019, Nathalie released Soleil Midi, a collection of original compositions and Haitian folk songs, which is currently available on all major music purchasing and streaming platforms. She's also the co-founder and lead editor of Woy Magazine, an online platform and meeting place for Haitians in Haiti and abroad, as well as anyone looking to be in solidarity and community with Haitians. Through an online magazine, bi-weekly newsletter, community events, and multimedia projects, Woy produces content in both Creole and English that explores Haitian history, politics, and the arts. Please give a round of applause for Elischa. And last, but certainly not least, we have Laurent Dubois, who is the John L. Now III Bicentennial Professor of the History and Principles of Democracy at the University of Virginia, where he directs the Digital Technology for Democracy Lab. From 2007 to 2020, he was Professor of Romance Studies and History at Duke University, where he co-directed the Haiti Laboratory from 2010 to 2013, and then founded and directed the Forum for Scholars and Publics. He has written about the Age of Revolution in the Caribbean, with Adventures in the New World, the story of the Haitian Revolution, and A Colony of Citizens, Revolution and Slave Emancipation in the French Haitian Revolution, or in the French Caribbean, 1787 to 1804, which won 4 book prizes, including the Frederick Douglass Prize. His 2012 Haiti, The Aftershocks of History was a New York Times Notable Book of the Year. He has also written about the politics of soccer, with Soccer Empire, the World Cup, and the Future of France, and the language of the game, How to Understand Soccer. His work on the cultural history of music, the banjo, America's African instrument, was supported by a Guggenheim Fellowship, a National Humanities Fellowship, and a Mellon New Directions Fellowship. His most recent book is Freedom Roots, Histories from the Caribbean, co-authored with Richard Turitz. He has translated works by Jean Casimir, Jean-Claude Vignolet, Achille Mbembe, and Lillian Thuram into English. His writings on music, history, and sport have appeared in The Atlantic, The Nation, The New Republic, The New Yorker, and The New York Times. He's currently writing the history of the French Atlantic under contract with Basic Books entitled Watershed, France and the Americas. Please give a round of applause for Laurent Dubois. All right, let's get started with something simple, right? Which is, when you think about Haitian football culture, what's the first image, memory, or feeling that comes to mind for you? Open to the entire panel. Feel free to jump in whenever you feel like.
Oh, man. You know, all right, I'll take this one first. I grew up in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, and I just remember that, first of all, it's crazy to me that, you know, Brazil is playing Haiti in the World Cup, because it just feels like Brazil is such a huge part, in a weird way, of Haitian football culture. Like, my middle name is Ronaldo because of R9. Like, people always ask me, like, no, I have to see your passport. Let me see your ID. That can't be true. Like, my legal middle name is Ronaldo. And that's because my dad, you know, loves Ronaldo, and he wanted it to be my first name. My mom said absolutely not. So they compromised on that. But that was, you know, the bulk of my childhood. Like, you know, in terms of my soccer experience in Haiti, playing in school, playing in the neighborhood, and watching Brazil. Like, I didn't have the attention span for club football when I was a kid. So whenever international breaks came in and Brazil was playing, that was it. You know, people were gathering in our living room. You know, everybody in the neighborhood didn't have a TV. So it was like that sense of community too. It was, you know, it was telenovelas and it was soccer that people would come to the house to watch, you know? So yeah, for as long as I can remember, it's always been part of, it's just like merged within the fabric of the culture. I think football is just as important as like music and food, you know, to the Haitian people. So yeah, it's a part of us.
Yeah, it's very similar because I grew up in Port-au-Prince as well. Sorry, I thought I asked Shamira if my bio was too long, and it was. My bad. Yeah, I grew up between Philly and Port-au-Prince. You know, my family was here when I was a baby. In, you know, it is what it is. From '88 to '95, and in 1994, that World Cup is my earliest World Cup memory, and my parents were really obsessed with the concept of moving back to Haiti, but they couldn't because it was the embargo at the time. And some Haitian spiritual person made the prediction that if Brazil won the World Cup in '94, Aristide would return from exile. And my dad, who was obsessed with moving home and obsessed with Aristide returning home, I remember us being like we are praying for Brazil to win so that Aristide can go home, so that we can go home. And Brazil won, and I think it's like the first World Cup that was decided by penalties. So we were really at the edge of our seats. I was like 6. I remember that. It's one of my earliest memories. And then the next earliest memory was my uncles, my grown men uncles, crying like babies at the '98 World Cup. So yeah, Haiti and Brazil are just so inextricably linked. through soccer and through that politics, because you can see multiple major Brazil events are tied to major political events because of some just by serendipity and some quite explicitly because soccer is used to quell resistance, etc.
So I'm just remembering maybe the most wonderful soccer game I've been to, and I was at the World Cup in 2010 and so forth, was a Haiti Gold Cup match that was played out here in Harrison in 2019, which was, in the terms of the history of soccer, like not a relevant game that anyone remembers, except for Haiti fans, when they defeated Costa Rica. Now it seems a little portentous because this was sort of the team that was starting to rise, and you know that they're in the World Cup this year is so huge. But it was a group stage match. They defeated Costa Rica, and afterwards the party in that parking lot was like they had won the World Cup. You know, you came out and you heard like rah rah from the distance. Everyone joined in. The police just like backed off. And I just was, so there's something about that, right? The kind of passion. Obviously, this has to do with the fact that Haiti is obviously often so denigrated, so attacked, right? So these moments of pride and togetherness are particularly important. But I think that those fans have been carrying this team, and the kind of passion that that we saw in the games against New Zealand and elsewhere are just, I think that culture really is so powerful and kind of lifts up the nation and the sport, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have been tuned into recent soccer news of the past week, but if you've seen how Haiti just beat New Zealand 4-1, I believe, in Fort Lauderdale.
4-0.
4-0, excuse me. Let me be corrected. And the celebration that happened in the stadium afterwards, that looked like a home game in Fort Lauderdale. So clearly the spirit behind the Haitian national team is quite high. And I think all of us are excited to see how it goes through in the group match. I want to actually hone in a little bit on all of you guys separately mentioned Brazil in one way or another, right? And as you mentioned already, Elischa, that for many Haitians, Brazil occupies a unique emotional place, right? Not all of us have Ronaldo as our middle name, but it is very much a part of the conversation, from loyalty to the teams to, of course, the 2004 Match for Peace that happened in Haiti with the background of the UN peacekeeper intervention at the time. I would love for all of you guys to give your own perspectives about why the Brazilian national team has been historically so tied to Haiti and what that means for you as a fan, if it means anything at all.
No, for sure. I think, so throughout my whole life, like my dad has told me stories about how incredible it was for him to see Pele play in person, because he used to be with the New York Cosmos, and they went to play in Haiti at some point, and that was the first time he was able to actually see like a major Brazilian, but the biggest Brazilian player ever in person. And I remember, because you spoke of the peace, the Match for Peace in Haiti, and that summer, my dad was livid because we didn't know it was happening when they planned a family vacation for us. And this was 2004. I'll never forget this. It was the first time I ever came to the States. And, when it happened, we were in Florida, and all his friends went to the game. So everything that happened with the Minusta and the tanks and Ronaldinho, everybody coming through, was like, all of this is happening and we're not there to experience it. So yeah, it was insane. But it was such a huge moment. And you look at videos of it now, of how thousands of people, damn near the whole city was there to welcome those players. And for me, there's a lot of sentimental value attributed to that specific moment, because as upset as my dad was that summer for not being able to be there, fast forward now, full circle moment, me doing what I do for a living and being a creator and stuff. And I had the opportunity to interview R9 last year.
Wow.
And I brought my dad, so he was able to meet him. So that kind of made up for like the fact that we weren't there for the game. But, decades later, it's like that's a moment that people still, he was able to find healing through that. Anybody else that didn't go to the game, I don't know. But it's still something that we talk about, and they also bring us, I think, Brazilian players, and now the Haitian national team, the joy that watching them bring Haitian people, I think is really what draws, what draws us to them. It's the joga bonito. It's like the flair, the passion, the swag that they play with, is what's, for me, from my experience, is the beauty of their game is what made us fall in love with them. And so for a long time, it's like, okay, we didn't have the means, the infrastructure, like our federation just wasn't up to par. And so our team wasn't up to par. So because of that, we didn't have something to root for. And so it was very easy to root for these guys. I can't say the same about the Haitian fans that support Argentina. I don't know. But I know why we like Brazil. So now it's to see the fact that our federation has worked so hard, to rebuild and restructure themselves and actually be, able to compete on all levels. Now we have something to root for, and we have, a team that we actually love, that we enjoy to watch, and that like people really go hard for. And now there are memories, like there's heartbreak even associated with watching our team. Before it was like, oh, Haiti loses, we always lose. That's kind of what we do. But like and I call it us getting robbed, when we got robbed in that Gold Cup and Mexico was given that penalty and we lost that 1-0, it was like, oh my God, like that hurt, because we felt like we finally have something, like we have a team, so to me, it's like that dichotomy to me between the two is now we're finally realizing, okay, this is really why we love this Brazilian team, but slowly it's like, oh, now we have a lot of those same reasons to love our own teams. Like I put my dad on the spot the other day and I said, "Tarim bien," like during the Haiti-Brazil match, which we're gonna go to, like, let me know right now, like what's going on. And it was kind of like, we waited. It was like me and my mom, we were in silence, like, who are you gonna root for? And he was stuttering and I was like, careful, you might get left at home. But it's the sense now that the fact that we're even rethinking that just goes to show that all we've been wanting to do is just have something to root for. It's just have something that can bring us joy, especially now with everything that's going on in Haiti. It's been going on. And there's the sense of something that I tell the players to whenever I get a chance. It's like, there's no pressure, but the high stakes is not because we're expecting you to win. The stake is just, we want to see you give your all out there. We want to see you have fun. Like, that's what brings us joy. Brazil hasn't won a World Cup since 2002, but what hurts most about watching Brazil now isn't the fact that they're not winning, it's the fact that they've lost the sauce. It feels like without Neymar, there's no Brazil for real, So I think that's that. It's the theme right now is just, the sentiment is just, we have something to look forward to because we just want to win. We love Merci du Monde because we love our people doing great things,
And I just want to say, before Talia answers, that Elischa's not joking. I live in Little Haiti, Little Caribbean, and I have seen plenty of half Brazil, half Haiti kits. I don't know where they're making them, but people are wearing them. Yeah. Before Talia answers, I just want to mention that Talia, through Voy magazine, actually contributed an essay written by Haitian writer Maher about Haiti's history and football love in this moment, and specifically mentioned the 2004 match and attending it. Go ahead, Talia.
Hey, so you'll notice that soccer is nowhere in my bio. I'm not a sports person. I am a Haiti person. And the 2004, let me put my teacher hat back on. So like I said, Brazil wins in 94. Aristide returns in 94. By October, my family returns to Haiti in 95. 2004 I think that match really represents it's really symbolic of what was happening in Haiti, because it was a very confusing time if you don't have a very clear political analysis. Because the left, the Latin American left failed Haiti, the Haitian left failed Haiti. So Aristide is ousted again, right? under the guise of many things. And Lula brings a soccer team to appease the Haitian people after a president is basically shoved on a plane and brought and taken out of power, right? And I remember 2004. I remember being terrified during 2004. I remember being confused during 2004. I remember all sorts of political messaging being told to me in 2004. I won't really repeat it because I am a different person today and I have my own politics and not what I was told as a child. But I do know that 2004 was a fraught time politically around the uprising that ousted Aristide, right? And for one day, we all forgot that because in arrived Brazil, led by these tanks that would later kill so many of us, right? And those Brazilian soldiers would also indiscriminately kill people, bring cholera, sexually assault many women and children, right? And that is what that game ushered in, right? And it is so sobering to remember that because we screamed at the top of our lungs that day, every goal they scored, every single goal they scored. And it just makes you wonder, like, what, like when we look at stan culture today and how like, wow, this generation is really lost in fan culture, like celebrity worship has been a part of every generation, okay? I have a cousin named Gialdao, actually, so. And how could it be that we were in the middle of such of a politically fraught year, and for one day we cheered at the top of our lungs as the UN ushered in a violent occupation because Brazil came and played some soccer. And so these are the kinds of things that come, and yeah, like I said, some of it is serendipitous. It is like, I think at the provenance of the love that Haitians have for Brazil is Pelé. You know, there are these like certain larger than life people in Central America and South America. Pelé is one, Bob Marley is another. There's just like really larger than life characters that made everyone stop and become obsessed. And I think people are just gonna be confused for generations to come, and it's all him, you know? Yeah, and sometimes the connections, like the coincidences of like really historical moments that are connected to Brazil soccer are purely serendipitous. But some of them, like I said, are by design and part of a political project. And we have to always have to like stop and ask ourselves, okay, what am I being distracted from? And you know, I know that's an annoying question, but it is real.
I'll just add one thing, which is I think going back to like the 60s and 70s, the reason for this kind of connection between Haiti and Brazil was partly that generation of Brazilian players like Pelé and others, Garrincha, Gigi, were really fighting against a lot of racism within Brazil, right? They're kind of players who challenged a kind of racial order in Brazil, and were fighting for rights in a way that I think Haitians kind of recognized as, you know, in a sense, connected to their own struggle. So I think that's also another key thing, right, is that they saw in those players who kind of on the international stage were fighting for a kind of pride that resonated, you know. And so I think it's in some ways coming back full circle is really interesting. But I think that was one of the root reasons. And that generation of Haitian players that went to the World Cup in '74, you know, 4 years after Brazil had won, that era that I think we should remember now, because it was this other era in soccer, was meaningful because there was a kind of connectedness around that. So.
Wait, let me say one more thing. One other like Brazil-Haiti connection around soccer that kind of makes me gasp sometimes is like the way there have been like different peaks in the exodus of Haitians out of Haiti, you know, and one in particular has been in the last 10 years. And, you know, one was driven by Brazil drawing Haitians over to Brazil for cheap labor to build their stadiums for like when they were hosting the Olympics, right? And so these are just the kind of things that are like, is this a coincidence? It's kind of spooky, all the parallels between Haiti and Brazil and politics and soccer, yeah.
One thing I just wanted to say real quick to your points too, it was growing up in Haiti, like going to school, I remember there was a few times where like I would be like on my way to school and, you know, would have to run into my school ducking for cover because there'll be, you know, crossfire between, you know, the MINUSTA, which is what we call like the soldiers, that was the UN soldiers, and like, you know, gangs and stuff in the area. And it was this weird thing because you would see on tanks or on the helmet of the UN soldiers, like Brazil flags. And that almost, when you see that, it's like a tank. I don't know if any of y'all have ever seen a tank just in the middle of the street, like regular streets, like where cars and people are walking. It's very intimidating. But when you see a Brazilian flag on a helmet of one of the soldiers, it almost like, it disarms you a little bit, you know, because again, we love Haiti. It's Ronaldinho, all of that. Damn, my Haitian accent just came out just now for a second. But it disarms you, you know? So it's weird being, like you said, like cheering those people, and then years later learning all the negative impacts that some of these peacekeepers had that we didn't know at the time. So yeah, it begs that question for real, like, where were we being distracted from? You know, it feels like there's a reason why there was a disproportionate amount of specifically Brazilian soldiers for that program than any other nation.
Absolutely. And I think that was a great point you made, Elischa, about just the disarming of an armed force and how that feels symbolically, right? Laurent, I want to come to you quickly for a question, which is talking a little bit about the importance of Haiti's 1974 qualification, right? You know, it's a moment where 52 years later, it's of course a full circle moment for Haiti to come here. But I think it would be great if we can get some context of why that moment in the 70s was so big and how it factors into Haitian football history before we move up to the present. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share about that.
Yeah, I think it's really important. It's interesting, right? Because both Congo and Haiti, the last time they were in the World Cup was '74. Actually, I have a colleague at UVA, Robert Fatten, who's a great historian of Haiti, but who called that qualification game back in Haiti. So he always talks about that moment as another moment where it just felt like kind of miraculous, right? Like, but it was a generation of players. Of course, the most famous is Manu Sanon, who is a kind of legendary player from that group. But I think who were really inspired by the Brazilian team. In sharp contrast with today's team, they were all born in Haiti. Most of them played in professional leagues in Haiti, so kind of nourished out of that space. Different kind of time in terms of Haitian soccer. But to go out on that stage, and I think that in particular, people will remember this, but in their first game, they faced Italy, which is a team that was like famous for this incredibly defensive style of play, like you just could not score against Italy, right? And there's this incredibly legendary goal where Manu Sanon kind of gets a header, he moves forward, does a beautiful little move with his foot, and then scored, right? And I think for a lot of Haitians of that generation, people just remember that one goal, even if they then went on to lose that game. They didn't get out of the group phase, but that goal kind of brought the country together in a powerful way. And there's an image. There was a mural in Haiti that actually right before the earthquake, it fell down during the earthquake. But in Bel Air, there was a mural that I sometimes show my students, and it shows like 4 figures of the Caribbean history, and you have Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Emmanuel Sanon, like all next to each other. And that this makes sense in a way, right? That there's a way in which that moment just of pride and remembrance, So I think that's really important. And the fact that today we make that connection with that heritage is important. It's been a really long time, but I think it's the part of the magic of the World Cup is that a moment like that can happen and be seared into people's memories, so.
I was on the phone with my dad, and he was retelling me, because they tell me about 1974 all the time, my parents. And like the big thing was that the Italian goalkeeper Zoff had not been scored on for like over 1,100 minutes. And it was this record everyone was counting. The 1970 World Cup. Yeah. And so, yes. And so Manu Sanon came and scored on him.
Hello.
And, to bring back the woo-woo, someone had predicted that a country whose letters started with H would win the World Cup. And then Manu Sanon scored on Italy. My dad said he rolled on the ground in Shanmas. He said, and my mom said they took to the street and partied, that by the time they were done cheering, Haiti had lost 3-1.
I love it. And, you know, I just want to briefly mention that similar to Haiti, Brazil, Haiti and Congo have a lot of shared history. Like 1974 was the last time both countries qualified, but also around that time in the 70s, a lot of Haitian civil servants went over to Congo to offer services and help, you know, invest in rebuilding Africa post-colonization. And so that is a shared history that now is kind of coming back full circle as both Haiti and Congo are both actively clamoring for, you know, a lack of intervention in their respective crises as we're celebrating this moment in the World Cup. I want to fast forward a little bit, you know, 50 years or so into like the present run. Elischa, I know you've been faithfully covering soccer for some time, and obviously you have the occasion now to be on the front lines as Haiti has been having this charmed run to the group stages. What has it been like for you to see the development of the team? What emotions, if any, have you had over the last 2 years as Haiti, both the men and the women's team, has had an impressive run? You can't count out the women, the Grenadiers over there. They've been knocking it out the park, you know, and what has it been like to be able to cover on behalf of your country, but also as a soccer and football fan?
It's an honor unlike, you know, anything else throughout my career. Like I've had a lot of markers and goals and things that I've set out for myself, like as a creator, as a host, and just, you know, working in soccer media and content. And I think it's always been at the back of my head, like, what can I do like with my country though? But, you know, when I started our team, we didn't have, like, I started in 2018, you know, the 2019 Gold Cup was right after that. But when I first was beginning my content career, there was not much, again, for the national team to root for on either side, the men's or the women's. But I've always known, you know, anything relating to my country, I want to be a part of. So the better we got, the more, you know, that started being less subconscious and more of like a, you know, a conscious goal and an objective to be a part of anything that the national team has going on. And then, you know, again, the night in 2019, the Gold Cup happened, and it was this sense of like, like if we could do that, like what else can we do? You know, if our young players continue to grow and we have more and more Haitian players, you know, overseas, what can this program become? And the more consistently, you know, things started growing, the more that felt like, oh, this is actually gonna happen. And then our women's team, especially when Melshi, came in the picture. That's my birthday twin too. I made sure to tell her that when I first met her. So yeah, it just started feeling like, oh, I get to live out my dream, making content, traveling all over, doing all these amazing things that I'm like still, you know, dumbfounded by and so honored to be a part, to be experiencing. But then to do it with Haitian people is a special kind of feeling. Like, I remember in this qualifying campaign for the World Cup, very early on, I felt like we have the team, we have the facilities, our federation, the way we're operating, and this is why how you do anything is how you do everything, because it wasn't just on the pitch, it was how the team was being ran, our social media pages, everything just looked so much more official that from a year before, it just felt like, man, we almost did it last World Cup. So it just felt like a natural progression that we're gonna qualify for this one. And I realized a lot of people weren't paying attention. I was like, yeah, I don't know if y'all seeing this, but we got a team, you know, our women's team just made it to the World Cup. Like, I think this can actually happen. And we would like win games, lose games, like draw games, whatever. And it just felt like there was no belief in the team. But I'm locked in, like, no, I think we're really gonna do this. And I believe, I can't remember, it was like this, not the second to last game, the game before that we lost one. And prior to that, there was some murmurs, there was some buzz online about, you know, we're making a real push to qualify for the World Cup. Then we lost the game. And I remember my dad, and I made sure to have my I told you so moment with him afterwards. It was him, it was people online, you know, some journalists who didn't necessarily publicize it, but who I had conversations with in the DMs who were like, man, these guys, they always do this. They always fumble. They always disappoint us. And I said, y'all are crazy. Like, I'm riding with this team to the end. Like, we're not done yet. You know, we still have a chance. And that was at the moment where I told myself, like, I'm so committed to, you know, this vision that I have for us playing in this World Cup. Regardless of what happens, I'm going to Curacao for the last match. Like, it doesn't matter whether or not we still have a chance. I'm going to the match. And it's crazy. Like, I got shivers when my agent, you know, called me when I was on a flight to Miami for something. I can't even remember. And he called me and he's like, he called me or texted me, one of them. And he told me, hey, CONCACAF just contacted us and they want to send you out to the last qualifying match for the World Cup with Haiti. And it was like, I had told nobody that I was going to go. Like, I was going to book my own ticket, my own flight, everything. And the fact that, like, they contacted me, that was, again, my next sign that, like, oh, we're going to qualify. There's no way this is happening right now. And so, you know, we go ahead, we win another game, and at this point, all we have to do is just win this final one, and we're good. And speaking with CONCACAF, went over there, flew to Curacao. I'm in the hotel with the players, like, and for the first time, it's like my two worlds, like, collided. It was like my Haitian side and my soccer side were together, and I'm seeing people, I'm having conversation. They're like, oh, you're here for this, you're here for that. And I'm having a conversation about soccer with people in Creole, and it's, you know, that's not something that I was used to for a while since I moved to the States, because everybody else around me is, you know, it's so diverse. And, you know, when we actually did it, it was like, I don't know, I knew while I was experiencing it that I was in the midst of history. And it was, none of it is about me. I'm just a speckle, you know, in that world. I'm just a fly on the wall, but I'm a fan and I'm Haitian. So I'm like, I'm really experiencing this to the maximum level. I don't know what to do with myself. Like, it's a happiness I had never experienced before. And, you know, we win. We're waiting for, like, one more result. I think it was, oh my God, what was the game that we were waiting for? Yeah, there was another match, you know, part of in our group that we needed the correct result for us to move through. And it happened, and the players were, like, in the middle of the field with the coach, like, on a phone watching the last few minutes of that match. And when it finally, like, happened, the whole, like, stadium, everybody went crazy. People tried to go over the fence. I had to go near the fence and yell at people. Like, I was so nervous because I know what type of luck my people have sometimes. So I'm like, God forbid we qualify, and because our fans invade the pitch, somehow FIFA is like, these people can't be in the World Cup anymore. So I ran over there like, get off the fence, don't go over, like, the players are gonna come to you guys, like, because I was on the pitch the whole time. And, you know, they listened and they stayed over there, and I ran to go to the team to capture content because I'm like, oh, I still have to do a job here and create and film this stuff. And, like, the moment happens, and it's insane. If I didn't film it, like, I could not tell you right now that it actually happened because it felt like a dream. And, you know, afterwards it's pure chaos, and Tonton Bisha is there, and Michael Burn is there, and it's, you know, and we finish and we go in the locker room, and I'm on the bus with the players, and I'm sitting there at some point, like, the players are celebrating behind me. I'm sitting on this bus like, bro, what am I doing here? Like, what is happening? This is crazy. And I remember, like, because again, I'm still doing the job. I still have footage to send to CONCACAF. I still have, you know, videos to submit and, you know, work to do. And everybody's outside, and players are, like, texting each other, whatever, like, they're about to go out here, there. It's Curacao. I don't know if y'all ever been. I don't know how anybody in Curacao is ever productive because there's so much partying to be done every day of the week. But as they're planning that, and I'm like, no, I have to go and submit all of this first because, you know, CONCACAF sent me here to do a job. So I have to complete it. And I remember I'm, like, on WeTransfer waiting for, like, footage to load, and, like, it's just quiet in my room, and it's distant like cheers and stuff outside the hotel, and I just broke down in tears because it was like it was the first moment from weeks ago when I realized, okay, I'm going to Curacao, this is exciting, whatever. It was the first moment of just silence that I got to where I really realized what just happened, and it was so overwhelming for me and happy for me that it's just all these emotions came pouring out, and I didn't regain my voice until like 3 days later because I had been yelling so much. But to then be called back, by CONCACAF, and shout out to Sport 5 and everybody at the agency working so diligently to bring back this project with all the different countries from CONCACAF to work throughout this World Cup and cover the team. And it's an unbelievable feeling. Like I'm gonna make sure like I document everything because again, I feel like I'm gonna feel like it's all a dream. And yeah, and that's what we want to share with everybody.
Absolutely.
I don't want it to feel like, yeah, I'm there, I'm experiencing it, I'm extremely privileged to be able to get a front row seat at this experience, but we want everybody from all over to experience this with us. Like we want people, don't get discouraged if we draw against Brazil or Morocco or Scotland. It's like, no, let's keep supporting. I've seen crazy scenarios in the World Cup to where people move through to the knockout stages and by sometimes not winning a single game in the group stage. So it's like, because we don't win one game, because we may be stumbling a little bit. No, it's like, keep supporting the team, keep mobilizing,
Absolutely.
keep cheering the guys on because everybody should be a part of this moment.
Yeah. I want to bring up like just the concept of diaspora. I think it's like a very important moment in this conversation for a number of reasons, right? One is, of course, that the current Haitian national team, a majority of their players were not born in Haiti. Many were born in France, some in the US and other places. Also, Haiti played without a home stadium. You guys played out of Curacao, as you mentioned. And, obviously right now is a time where like very annotated by Haitian migration. A lot of people are moving different places. I think it would be remiss to not mention the impact of TPS in Haitian movement right now and how that becomes a factor in ICE's presence at the World Cup. I guess I want to throw this to you, Tali, first, but how has migration in your perspective reshaped how people feel about Haitian national team as a part of their identity? And also, beyond thinking about Haitian identity, how have communities in Haitian diasporas, in your experience, reacted to being able to support a very diasporic team in a moment where it feels like Haitian identity is more spread out than ever?
So while I was walking in, my dad called me and said, I have certain facts I need you to say on the panel. So shout out to you, Papi, I'm going to say it. One was that in 1974, when Haiti went to the World Cup, only one of their players played in an international club. Whereas the team that's coming today, only one of them plays in Haiti, right? So they're all either international trained or international born and trained, right? And it's like, it really tells the story of what's been happening in Haiti in the last few decades. Now people have been fleeing the country for very specific reasons, and it's by design, right? Like Haiti is being emptied out. Haiti is being emptied out for various reasons, to extract us for our labor and to keep us from being master of our own land and master of our own resources, right? And so what does that mean? It means we land in places like Philadelphia, like New York, like Paris, like Montreal, and we figure it out. Our children either thrive or they don't, or they fall victim to the systems of these countries we land in. And what we end up with is a team scattered, right? And that team tells that story. It tells the story of the many coups. It tells the story of imperialism and meddling and poverty and people not being paid a proper wage in Haiti. It tells that story. And so for me, the team is very sad. It's kind of sad for me, I think. I have this sadness sometimes when I come to an event like this and I see someone that I know from Port-au-Prince and I know them as a Port-au-Prince person, and I'm like, what are you doing in New York? Like, you shouldn't be in New York. Like, I'm happy to be in the same room as you, but like, you should be someone I'm missing. Like, because Haiti has been emptied, right? And so it brings us to what the political context is today, right? That Haiti Port-au-Prince is under siege by armed groups, that Brazilian soldiers have been replaced by Kenyan soldiers, that we have a political vacuum that hasn't been filled since the last president, who wasn't even past his mandate, was assassinated, right? And this team wins, even though we aren't able to play a home game, right? So it is like as beautiful as it is sad, right? Because we had to get this out the mud. We had to piece this team together from like scattered places, from everywhere we are scattered. We had to hope that our children are raised proud enough to be Haitian to play for Haiti, right? We had to hope that we would find enough goodwill from our government to pull together the resources to send them to a cup, and then piece together this team to give us so much pride in such a miserable time. And so people are so proud of both the women and the men. And the women they've been on a run
Going crazy
since before, And like I said, I'm not a sports person. I'm a Haiti person. What Way magazine does is like they try to offer people context, because Haiti is hard to follow, and it is by design for it to be hard to follow. They want it to be like, it's too hard for me to pay attention. The president was assassinated. This was that. I don't know. Is there an electoral council? Is there elections? I don't know. And then they want you to check out, right? And so and I'm always like, everything is happening within a specific context. And so this World Cup is happening within this context where we don't have a government. And so that day when we qualified, Haitians took to the streets, and what the videos said were people screaming, "Nous pas gen l'État, Haïti qualifié." We don't have a state, but Haiti has qualified. And it is miraculous. It gives me chills to say it, and it breaks my heart to say it. I think in a different year where we weren't in a place where so many people are here on TPS or by Biden, or that there might have been some resentment. I think there had been years like in the Olympics where certain like American trained runners got to represent Haiti, and people were like, they're kind of riding off the coattails of a Haitian mom, But today it's like they all we got, right? And so people are just like, these are the prodigal sons, and we're insanely proud of them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Laurent, I want to throw it to you. I don't know if you had another comment, but what I wanted to mention is, I think we've spoken about it from 1974, but even in the past 20 years, the Haitian Football Federation has done an immense amount of work to really rebuild its infrastructure operationally. For those of you who don't know, in the early 2000s, the Haitian Football Federation was shrouded in scandal. The president of their Haitian Football Federation at the time being accused of multiple heinous crimes, as well as organizationally being accused of intense corruption. And I want to know, from your perspective as someone who has been reporting on Haitian football culture for so long, what do you think it took, or what actions were taken to really bring us to such a triumphant moment right now in the 20 years since they had to completely recalibrate their team and their approach?
Yeah, you're right. There have been all these struggles within. I do think it's really, I agree with you about the sadness of this team being a diaspora team. And then at the same time, I think it's really powerful that this diaspora has come together, right? And players who, interestingly, the majority are born in France, right? So it's actually players who were born and raised in France and were able there, and in contrast to the United States, to kind of access a really good infrastructure for training. But those kinds of decisions that people have been made to kind of come together with the Federation and to kind of represent Haiti, I think is a powerful gesture. And so in some ways, the success is that they've been able to pull together the Federation itself, kind of reorganized, but also making use of this whole extraordinary group of players who, and unfortunately in some ways it's because they're outside the country that they've been able to have the resources in the training. But it's not unusual. Actually, a lot of the teams, people have probably read this, that there's about 100 French players playing at the World Cup, right? In Haiti, the Congo, Senegal, Morocco. So there's a lot of diasporic teams. People have different feelings about that. To me, in the Haitian case, it's a kind of a reminder of the kind of strength of those ties, right? And the pride, even though these Haitian migrants have been living in places that are extremely hostile Haitianness and to themselves, right? So that's powerful. I did want to say, in terms of the mystical historical convergences, right? The game that they qualified was on November 18th, the day of the Battle of Vertières. So there was something mystical about that, right? That the kind of this moment in Haitian history of triumph and victory. I think there was a kind of coming together, and I think there's sort of kind of that gave strength. Somewhat disturbingly, and Millery was the one who told me about this recently, very FIFA moment, that actually you may have noticed that on the Haitian uniform, there was a small depiction of the Battle of Vertières, right? And FIFA made them remove that from the, so another, many things to boo FIFA for, but kind of so powerful that they're still trying to silence that history, right? That they're still trying to take that away. And so I think that there's lots of layers to the Haitian pride around the team, but it's just connected as well to this deep Haitian pride about the history, about the struggles and the victories. So those kind of come together. And I would repeat again, I think the women qualifying for the World Cup and their determination, again, in the face of lots of struggles within the federation, sexual harassment, all kinds of things that were going on, really paved the way. And so that's something to be reminded, that those two teams, I think, will continue to triumph together. So.
Okay, we're winding down in the last few minutes of the panel. This hour passed by surprisingly fast. Thank you all for participating, of course, but I just want to ask a few quick round robin questions. I think I know the answer to this one, but I'll ask anyway, which is, which group match are you all most excited to see?
We don't have that.
For those of you who guys don't know, in the group matches, the first match is Haiti playing Scotland in Boston. Second match is Haiti playing Brazil in Philadelphia on Juneteenth. And the third match is Haiti playing, Morocco in Atlanta.
I'm most excited for the Brazil game, obviously, but also I'm really excited for the Moroccan game because of what happened in AFCON and the whole.
I was gonna say, Haiti has the honorary
with-
Africans. You guys have to get your revenge for us,
Because of the whole, and I'm Senegal wreck.
Exactly,
to the end of time.
exactly.
So it's like, we know who the champions are.
Did you
And
see
on 116th, they're gonna bring those flags out. Don't worry.
Absolutely.
There's a guy on Instagram who was saying everybody should bring towels, to sort of
Yeah,
make fun of this.
yeah.
There's gonna be a
Distract
lot of banter with the, But
So I'm really excited for the Morocco game because I think it's just, why not? Like, with how much happier I would be if both Senegal, won AFCON and Haiti beat Morocco. That would just, I'd be overjoyed. But
So first of all, I'm going to all 3 group stage games.
hello,
Just had to.
hello.
That's Tally's way of saying she's officially better than everyone.
I was like, am I gonna brag about this? Yes, I'm gonna brag about this.
Yes.
And she's actually under bragging. She's actually going to be performing at the Haiti Brazil
Hello.
match.
Hello.
I get to brag on my friends.
Dream gig for sure. I'm obviously excited for Haiti Brazil because I was raised to be a Brazil soccer fan, but I'm particularly excited about Haiti Scotland because I want to watch a Haiti game in Boston. Like, Boston is Haiti down,
Yep.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be an interesting, I think, overlap of specific enclaves in the Boston area, like the
Polish,
Boston Scotland
yeah.
community, which is very strong, and also the Boston Haitian community, it's going to be very interesting. Also interested about the Scots who are coming over and how they'll bond with the, longer term Bostonian Scots, but that's a different conversation. Okay, so that's one. If Haiti makes it out of the group matches into the knockout rounds, what's the first song you're playing if you're playing a song to celebrate?
Boakale. Hey, listen, I don't know. I won't have a voice, so I won't be able to sing. Just rabodai all day long.
Qu'est-ce que passe?
Yeah,
Come
That's what I
on.
was gonna say too. Bookman, old school.
And last one I'll ask, and then I'll open it up to some questions, which is, what is your favorite Haitian football memory? I know we've talked about a lot of them, but I don't know if there's anyone you want to point out. I think watching Haiti qualify has to
1,000%.
be peak for you, but just wondering if any others have any other memories you want to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, watching that game, I wasn't lucky enough to be there, but that just incredibly moving, and I think there's gonna be more good memories to come. So that's what I'm most excited.
There you go.
Shamefully, is that match for peace. It was such a happy day of my life. I'm not gonna lie to you. As complicated as it is, it's just a very dear memory. We were so happy in the middle of such a sad year. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to invite, one or two questions from the audience. Don't be shy. Yeah, back there. Mhm. Mm-hmm.
As one of the host countries and as someone who just takes up so much space in CONCACAF. And I'm just thinking, previously to what the Gold Cup was. Previously, the CONCACAF championship that ran from like the mid 60s to the mid 80s. Haiti was able to win that championship in 73 before qualifying for the World Cup in 74. And then after it transformed into the Gold Cup, you really haven't seen Haiti or a Caribbean nation have a presence in this tournament again. So I think my question is, I'm just like, what do you think? I don't know how to frame it, but it's just like when you're in a federation where these powerhouses like US, Mexico, Canada, they dominate. Like between US and Mexico, 17 wins. No other country has had a chance to even make it to the finals. So I guess the US and Canada also being like, part of the core group and part of these destabilizing forces. What do you see as an avenue for Haiti to have an impact within that CONCACAF space, while also being under this neoliberal, neocolonial iron fist with the US and Canada, if that question makes any sense?
I don't know. It might sound a little harsh, but I think the simplest answer, we just have to play better. Like when I look at the results of that last Gold Cup, it was, we were robbed, but at the same time, we could have outscored, Mexico. So I think that's in purely just the football sense, the way to trump kind of all of those, and no pun intended, but all of that corruption on the outside and kind of the overshadowing, of not just Caribbean Sea, specifically Haiti, by the US, Canada, Mexico, in the Confederation. I think the quality just has to be better. Once we start winning, when you're an undeniable team on the pitch, it's very hard for all of these other factors to affect the team. So if we start winning, then yeah, there's really no way for this to continue, and it's only going to help, from the top down in the youth level. It's going to keep trickling down. I don't see the Haitian women's team slowing down. It's like, yeah, we made it to the World Cup and we held, some of the best teams in the world to like, 1-goal victories. So it's like, if we keep playing better, we keep winning, like it's just going to be undeniable. And like, the corruption won't really have a foundation or a basis to stand on.
I don't have a soccer answer to that. I have a political answer to that.
We love political answers at Africa as a country. Go ahead.
It was just as much a political question. Sports. Hey. But I've been thinking a lot about like what it means that we've qualified while the US is hosting, while this US government is hosting, while this Haitian government, whatever it is in power. And and I hear my friends who are calling for boycotting, and it makes a lot of sense. I also have like a half-baked take that I probably shouldn't say, because I told myself I shouldn't say half-baked takes at panels, but
Find her after the panel.
My half-baked take on that is that people on the left tend to come out and kind of rain on parades in the middle of very huge cultural moments. It's like a decision I had to make on Way Magazine to stop talking about whether Carnival is a good investment or not, because I didn't want to, why am I the Carnival hater? And so what we have right now is a very beautiful political moment that is a political moment even within this context. And so we can use this time to really uplift Haitian workers, uplift Haitian women, uplift Haitian football. without getting too carried away about what joy actually represents. I'm not. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you. Mhm.
I guess my, just, I hope you guys can follow my thought process here. So, Haiti's coach has never stepped foot in the country. Gangs burned down the gold center, which is like a very growing emphasis to develop the next generation of Haitian footballers. And it's, I think Shamira pointed out, the team is built almost entirely from France, the US, Canada. And now Haiti's qualified after 50 years. I guess the question I'm kind of thinking about, when a country can't host its own games, when its coach can't enter its borders, when its players grew up somewhere else, like, what does that actually mean? Is football as protest? Is it football as survival? Is it football as, like, proof that Haiti still exists?
Can you repeat that last part?
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of preface it again. So, when a country can't host its own games, when its coach can't enter, its borders, when players grew up elsewhere, right? What does that mean? Is football, Haiti's
Yeah.
World Cup is protest? Is it survival? Is it, proof that Haiti sort of still exists? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it sounds like you're asking, like, how does Haiti, like Haitian football, anchor Haitian identity in the midst of all of this chaos, right? Mhm.
I think it's just proof and a testament to Haitian resilience, once again. And I think it's like, I don't know, I hope I get to see in my lifetime or experience a Haitian experience that isn't rooted in resilience, because it's kind of tiring to have to be resilient all the time. But I do think that that's just a proof that, for the ones who understand Creole, like, qui s'en qu'on a fait? Like, what else do we got to do? And that's kind of how Haitians approach everything is, we can sit in a corner and cry, or, we can defeat the French and gain our independence and do this, it's like we handle everything else. We just don't really have a choice. Just moping, just feeling sorry for ourselves, I just don't think is in our identity. And I think this is just further proof of that. I don't think, it's not a protest. It's, to add on to that, it is somewhat survival. But yeah.
It's kind of just like a reality. It's like football à l'image du pays. Like, it's like it is a reflection of that country, and I think people tend to bring it up like to kind of like discredit the team, and I wonder, like, are we asking the same thing of like a France whose players are mostly descendants of places they colonized? Like, what is really what is the question we're asking here? I don't know.
Yeah, France is Africa's best team in the World Cup.
As someone who
Tosin
got
said earlier.
roundly chastised by the French embassy, that is an allegedly. That's a conversation for another time. But yeah.
I also think, I think this is the solution, like this is the solution for this moment, right? Which is the question, right? What's the solution to this moment? Doesn't mean it always has to be that solution. You can think of Senegal, for instance, where an earlier generation of players that went far in the World Cup became kind of elders who kind of helped sustain a new generation, right? And have helped develop Senegalese football. And now we can see the things of that. But I also think that politically, the question of how the Haitian diaspora and Haiti are going to interact has been a political question for a long time. Of course, Aristide had this idea of the 10th department, right? And you can think about remittances and how kind of the diaspora can participate. So there's also that, right? I think that the question is, Haitians are tied together by this experience of exile and immigration. So in some ways, like what you said is a mirror of the question of the country. But I think to me, what's really important is the cultural moment, the way that Haitians have responded, right? In the country, abroad, elsewhere. So there's this moment of connection, and I think you're right. We have to grab that for what it is. Now the question is what to do with it. You know, can that unity go beyond football? Can that unity nourish a political project? Can it nourish new kind of inspirations, right? To make it more than football. But we can appreciate what's happening around football and thank the team for that too.
Right. All right. Unfortunately, we are right out of time, but I do encourage, if you have any last questions, please feel free to bother the panelists afterwards. I think we'll take some questions. But I just want to give one last round of applause to the panelists. Thank you so much for your contributions. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, I'm gonna be very tacky, but you can follow Woy at Woy Magazine, WOY Magazine. And if you're gonna be in Philly for Brazil versus
La
Haiti,
Coup.
we're hosting an event called La Coup Philly that morning at the Discovery Center. I have a flyer if you want one.
All right, thank you again. One more round of applause. In 5 minutes, we'll be doing a live taping of Maher's African Five-A-Sides podcast for those of you guys who are here. So please stick around. Otherwise, thank you again.
Where are you watching the opener tomorrow? I don't know yet. Okay, well, if you have any recognitions, please text me, because I'm looking for, especially if you can find Mexican fans. I think and then he does video. Yes. Let me just talk about it. You got this. You got this. Thanks. You got it. All right, man. Simple. 1, 2, 1. For real? I was like 2 months, like 3 weeks ago. There was a what do you call it?
All right. If we could maybe get back to our seats. We're running a little bit over time. We know that the New York Knicks have already tipped off, and everybody's keen to watch them. All right, we're gonna kindly request that everybody takes a seat, please. Ain't nobody listening. Hello.
You gotta have Shamira yell it.
For real. Or we just start. Okay, so thank you everybody for sticking around for this final panel. I know we have the unenviable task of really speaking last. Zito in particular spoke first and last, so start with the best, finish with the best. This is a live screening of the African Five-A-Side podcast, which is a podcast that tries to look at the continent's favorite pastime, past sports, try and integrate different factors, whether they're economic, social, or political. But this one is not really limited to African football. I've brought here Zito Madu, writer. I think that's probably the best way to describe you. I think one of the most brilliant minds when it comes to writing about soccer, football is Zito, and he's a must-follow on Twitter. He's an internet person. We also have Miguel Salazar, who's fact checker with the Times, I believe. Also editor of Golden Goal magazine, where you can also find some of Zito's wonderful work, as well as that of many of our panelists. So if you do have a chance to purchase the Golden Goal magazine, I recommend you do.
I got a copy right here. Yeah, Zito's in this magazine. We've got the great writing on dispatches from countries like Haiti, Uzbekistan, Ghana, and some really the great, literary writing, but also some political commentary on the World Cup. Check it out, goldengoal.world.
And finally, last but definitely not least, we have Aleksander Hemon, Bosnian-American writer, professor at Princeton, renowned author, and football fan.
Hello, everybody.
So we're on the eve of the World Cup. Tomorrow's finally the first match, Mexico versus South Africa. And I think one useful exercise a lot of people tend to do is the World Cup at times can be a marker. It comes once every 4 years in your life. And I think what we all like to do sometimes is think about, okay, where was I the last time this was played? 2022, I was in Marseille, and my wife was pregnant. Marseille is miserable in the winter. It's very windy, very rainy. And I remember just watching all of the matches in front of a TV, barely going out and writing as much as I could about the World Cup. It was a weird moment in my life. And I just remember being inside a lot. what do you guys remember about maybe a World Cup 4 years ago or another World Cup that was that came at an important period in your life? I'll start with you, Zito.
I think the World Cup 4 years ago, I had just recently moved here, like a year before. And what I remember the most is I watched the World Cup final with Susan Sarandon. Yeah, so Susan Sarandon, I might be revealing too much of his background here, but Susan Sarandon and Kyle Martino used to have a relationship in the sense that he was married to her daughter. And so he used to run this place called No Place Home in Chinatown. And so for the World Cup final, I was invited there to watch with Kyle and everybody else because him and I had like a previous relationship. And I was losing my mind during France-Argentina. And Susan was sitting next to me and she was just watching me the whole time because she's not like a huge soccer fan. And she was just like, "You're insane." And I was like, you don't understand how like much energy I have from this. But it was like, I think for me, it was like the start of a new life because I had lived in Detroit for so long. Like I had played soccer and gone everywhere, but like my home base was Detroit. And I think I had told my parents, like coming out the pandemic, if we ever came out of it, that it felt like I needed to graduate. And part of that was moving to a city that I think suited me more as like someone who does a little bit of everything. So I remember that kind of being the marker of like, here I'm at this place with these famous people watching this game that's like, you know, so much about the world coming together. And I remember it's like when it went to penalties, because I can't watch penalties, and I went up on the roof and I stood by myself.
You can't watch penalties.
I cannot watch penalties. Like my nerves are bad. Like me and my dad share that trait is like, it doesn't even matter if it's not teams that I'm interested in. I feel so anxious for the players. And so like, for example, when Arsenal went to penalties against PSG, I couldn't watch it. I literally went up for a walk. And then my friend just like sent me the video of like Gabriel missing. I was like, so I was on top of the roof by myself, just looking out into the city. And I just kept hearing like people roar around. And I was like, then I like sprinted down the stairs and I was like, oh my God, did Argentina win? And they were like, yeah. But that's what I remember.
So for you, it was a new beginning.
Yeah, it was a new beginning.
How about you, Miguel? Either the 2022 World Cup or another?
I mean, I feel like the last World Cup was such a weird one because I watched it all indoors. I was, here in New York, and it was in November, December. So every game I watched was in an enclosed space. Whereas in the past World Cups, I've been like either outside or it's been, it's the summer. I've only had the privilege of watching one World Cup in Colombia, which is where my family's from. One or two actually, but I think my most memorable World Cup might be maybe what I would consider like my first one, which is when I was like old enough to understand what was going on, but still like young enough to not be too like jaded by it or to still have like this like huge emotional response to what's going on in the field. And that was 2006. And besides, everything that went on throughout the tournament, I was rooting for Brazil. They let me down. I was rooting for Argentina after they let me down. I was rooting against Germany at all costs, and they kept winning until Italy beat them. And then in the final, watching Zidane headbutt Materazzi, I was just like, what is this sport? Like, I think that at that point, I was like, it was so out of the realm of possibility for me it's just a core memory. But also that was the first World Cup I saw in Colombia. And I was with my family, and I think it was the time that I also fell in love with soccer, not just because of what the World Cup represented, but it was the first time I felt like I had really bonded with my cousins, my uncles, like we were all watching the same thing. Even though we were rooting for different teams, I think we were also emotionally invested in it. And as someone who grew up here, like I was born in Colombia, but I grew up in the US, going back to Colombia, my family is also very politically engaged and of the left. And I think there was a lot of, even within my cousins, we were all like 12, 13, there was a lot of like skepticism of me because I was American. And I was like, guys, no, yo soy colombiano. But I think the World Cup, like just being all in was a way for them to be like, oh no, he's cool. And for me to be like, we have this in common. I think that one was beautiful. And the final of 2022, I mean, the final of the last World Cup was amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Aleksander, please.
Well, I'm very old, so I have a lot of memories. But when Miguel was talking about Zidane's headbutt, I remember that moment, and it's like how it was kind of the end of it's a tragic end to a career. He just ruined it all, right? It's such great drama. It was a great game too, but it was a peak of drama in soccer, which is why I guess we're watching. It's not just for, fancy footwork of soccer, brilliant goals, although that obviously gives us pleasure. But it's intensified drama on the pitch, right? Amazing things happen. And this does not necessarily depend on the quality of the teams of players. What is his name? Eriksson dropped almost dead again a few days ago, right? When people engage in an activity of such intensity with so much investment, sort of that becomes a great, great drama, right? And so it's also true that I had put money on Italy and France to win the World Cup. And so France had better odds. So that headbutt cost me about $400.
And I think one thing we could do, when we always talk about, I love football, I love soccer. I think there's a pretty sharp distinction between watching the game and playing the game, or being a supporter and playing. Aleksander, you wrote this essay that I read, if God was, played football, he'd be a solid midfielder. You really spoke about the experience of playing the game. I think it was in Chicago. Can you tell me about that period of your life, what playing the game meant to you then?
Well, I've written about it in various places in books. So I moved to Chicago, ended up in Chicago rather in '92, right? And I effectively became a refugee in Chicago. And there were no Bosnians in Chicago. This is the time when the war in Bosnia started and went on for a few years. So I was kind of the first. So I happened to be in Chicago when the war started, so I stayed. And so I really didn't have very few friends that had no interest in soccer. And I used to play weekly before I ended up in Chicago. And there were couple of years, in fact, where I hadn't played at all. And that had psychological impact. I was going through rough stuff. Anyway, I found a group of people to play with, and they were from all over the world. And it was the most beautiful aspect of soccer, right? That the world, you access it, you can access it through soccer, right? There's a sort of a physical human experience, right? At the Haitian panel earlier, I remember that my first World Cup that I remember was 1974. So I remember Zaire and Haiti playing, and I was 9 years old or so. So I had to find Haiti on the map, right? So the World Cup literally opened up a part of me. Didn't reach that geography lesson in the third grade, right? We didn't get to the Caribbean. And so also Zaire, right? The Congo today, now they're in the World Cup again. So to access that, so the worldliness of that was also present in the group of people I was playing. At some point, we had a Tibetan goalie, like he had sort of a Dalai Lama abilities sometimes. It was a little slow, but that's what I loved. And I played 2 or 3, sometimes I was already in my 30s, times a week, right? And one part of it was sort of physical needs, the joy that comes from endorphins and adrenaline, right? And communicating with other people physically it's like dancing. You don't have to talk about things other than curse at them for not passing a ball. But the other thing is this sense of collective joy that can be transferred upwards to when you watch a game, whether it's your national team or whatever team you support, or even just watching an amazing game, right? There's this sense that something special and dramatic, in a bad sense, like the headbutt, is happening. But it's an intensified experience. And that sense is very close to art, right? It's not, doesn't work at art in many ways, but it's this amplified intensity of being in the world, right? It's brief if you're playing, and the thing is that vanishes. Once it stops, it vanishes. And unless you are Mbappe, right, whose every move is recorded, right, no one remembers it by you. No one remembers the pass that I made in '95, which was total genius, but except for me. But I also remember the sense of being with these people doing these things. And they also obviously had beautiful passes, whatever else. And this collective joy thing is the indelible part of soccer. Not even FIFA and Infantino or Trump can ruin it, right? Because the excitement of people who were talking about Haiti, right? it's beautiful to see, right? And my Bosnians feel the same way, right? I wasn't going to watch the World Cup because I'm so sick of Infantino and FIFA, but then Bosnia qualified. Now everything's interesting to me. Yeah.
Miguel, do you prefer watching or playing the game?
Oh, that's a good question. I like both. I used to play never professionally, and I didn't even play in college because once I started playing in a more competitive level when I was in high school, I just kind of lost interest because of how demanding the practices were. It felt a lot more, it started to feel like more work. And also, I mean, I wasn't at the level. But I was gonna say something you said, Sasha, that stuck with me and made me think about kind of like the comparison of art and sport is also, I feel like soccer or football, the sport itself, is also, it can be like an outlet of self-expression almost, you know? I feel like not for every player, you know, you have the workhorse, you know, like midfielder, and like you have these the center backs who their job is literally to just like stop the other team from scoring, but then you have wingers, forwards, who have, if they're good enough and if they do all what they're supposed to do, like defend when they don't have the ball, they have all this like freedom. And the players I've fallen in love with are the ones that play in a way that no one else can or has. And yeah, and I try to like emulate that when I play pickup, you know, but I can't, now my knees won't let me, but yeah, I love to do both. I think there's like an intensity to watching a really tense game that I haven't been able to I haven't gotten playing at a more recreational level.
Zito and actually Miguel, just quickly, just give me a name. You speak about, you know, wanting to replicate what these players are doing on the pitch. Who's a player that when you watch, you say, maybe you watch their skill compilations on YouTube a few times and they make you want to play the game. Is there a player like that for you?
Oh, Ronaldinho, 100%, man. I mean, I feel like that's the player for a lot of people. I will say also, on the subject of penalty kicks, I've taken a few just for like my recreational league when we go to penalties, and I'm like, I can't even imagine to do this in front of like the entire world. It's nerve-wracking, and I usually just like kick it as hard as I can at the goal.
Yeah, not a good strategy. Zito, you probably, I think, played at the highest level between the four of us, and we had a conversation just backstage now about sometimes falling out of love with, you know, once you get to that level where you're nearly professional and you realize what a toll it can take on you. Could you perhaps talk about that a little bit? Like perhaps you tell me, did you fall out of love with the game when you're at that level?
Yeah, we were talking about it, and it's like, so I ended up going to Turkey for a little bit. I played in Antalya, and so much of that was like, you know, when you get to that level, especially in the preseason, we're like doing 2 practices a day, right? So it's like you're doing physical, you're doing technical later at night. And it's just this sort of intensity. And then you're playing like in the preseason games and you're playing, and then, you know, you start actually playing in the season. And the thing that I was saying was like, there was a certain point where like I got offered this contract and I was thinking about it. It's like, oh, for the next 10 years of your life, all it's going to be is like practice, play, injury, train, and like continuously. And I think when you're playing sport at that level, you don't really have a life outside of it, regardless if you want to, right? You're either going to be too tired or you just don't have the sort of space to like take up new interests. And one of the first articles that I actually wrote when I became a staff writer was about the sort of elevated level of depression and anxiety and adverse coping behaviors that athletes have after they retire or after they are forced to retire, because you get to the age of like 35 or whatever, and they just throw you out into the world. Like all the structures that you've known since you were young are gone. All your like community is gone. And then you have no like transferable skills or anything. And they're just like, well, good luck. And you really have nothing else, right? So it's like, unless you stay within the game, you're basically a child at the age of 35 or like the age of 40. But I remember going through it and I was like thinking about this and the contract offer, and I think what I came to was like, I want to do more in the world. Not necessarily that it's going to pay more, because being a professional athlete is wonderful in that regard. But like, I wanted to write, I wanted to like do movies, I wanted to do all of these things.
And I think for me, it was like, this is the moment where all this, like I have to start these creative things. And playing soccer is just something that I really love, but is very limited in what you can do with the rest of your life. And, you know, I'm always kind of resistant to, like, even back then, to being labeled as an athlete because of every connotation that's within that. Like, I love playing soccer. It's like one of my favorite, or playing football is one of my favorite things. It's the only place where I could be a psychopath and no one sees it as a negative, right? It's just like, you're not talking to your teammates because you're so locked in and you're so angry at your opponents, even though they haven't done anything to you. And people are like, yeah, he's so competitive. But, so like, I love it, and I love playing now. Like, I'm playing on Saturdays, and, you know, I always joke with my friends, like, our Saturday game is supposed to be like casual, but within the first 10 minutes, everyone's like, all right, this shit is not casual anymore. Like, we need to win. But I think back then it's like, oh, the demands for being a professional athlete are different than like playing it for fun. And, you know, it was my dream to play, and I really liked it. And like, the demands itself, I could sort of like convince myself to do, but I also just could not convince myself that this is all you're going to be for a very long time. And I was like, oh, like, I think I want more from life than just playing sports.
One of the things, I became a journalist almost 15 years ago now. I can't believe I'm saying that. And for that, me becoming a journalist, I very quickly realized coincided with my coming out of fandom. I was no longer passionate about Arsenal as I was before. Before it was, I'm waiting the entire week for Saturday. I'm reading previews, it's injury news, and there's a lot of pent-up tension leading into the game, and then the game's there, and nobody can talk to me when the game's on. And the goal is a release, and a victory is the best feeling in the world, and a loss is obviously crushing. Do you guys still feel that way? Like, I think this is something that almost every child probably experiences. Do you guys still feel that way about watching either, I think it's Liverpool, Aleksander, or Bosnia when they play? Can you be that emotionally invested in these teams again?
Yes, and I also, follow the news and injury reports, and I, participate in a fantasy soccer league, several of them, and my moods are directly related to Liverpool's results and consequently to the fantasy soccer scores, right? And so it is really silly for a man of my age to get so invested, but everyone who knows me knows this about me. My wife sort of knows that if Liverpool is not doing well, that I need some space. And so that, I think, because there's always this aspect, it's not emotional release of just pent up, but there's this, the great thing about being a fan is that you sort of perpetuate your own delusion that your passion can impact the outcome of the game. And this is in front of a TV, never mind the stadium, right? Like, because this is the beauty of fandom. This is why it's actually, everyone should have a team to support. The Knicks, I think it's beautiful. I'm not a Knicks fan because I spent decades in Chicago, but I love the love that people have for the Knicks. So I am excited for people who are excited. I wish I could be part of that excitement by virtue of being in New York. So that intensity, what's the point, right? You have to make tactical analysis on Saturday morning at 7:30. That's not the joy of soccer. To me, it comes back to this sort of experience that is continuous in my relationship with football, right? Both when I played and when I watched, is that I experienced joy that I could share with other people, right? And metaphorically, because we all watched the same game at the same time, or the actual bodies in the room, right? I can remember finals and people of various games and people I watched it with. I remember the days, I remember the feelings around it, around that week, that day, right? So that is exciting, right? And we participate in culture always vicariously. Like, we sing songs that someone else wrote and then singing from 200 yards away, right? I think that whatever the occasion for joy could be, I think we should always grab it, particularly at a time like this, while being aware of the context and the politics and all of that. Those are not mutually exclusive at all.
Miguel, can the context that Aleksander's talking about, we've seen it all manifest itself over the last few days, the Somali referee being sent home, certain, screening and immigration policies. Does that ever eat away at your fandom? Do you ever think about, should I be watching this World Cup? We are all gonna end up watching anyways, right? But like, does the guilt almost like dull it a bit for you?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, there are a few factors there. One is just the overall political situation with the U.S. That has sort of dulled. I mean, I can't tell if it's that, if I'm getting older and thus feeling a little like less excitement. I feel like over the years I haven't felt the way I did in 2006, and I want to, and I think that's the feeling I'm chasing every 4 years. But I also, I mean, I've been following this, pretty closely, given Golden Goal magazine, and just because I'm curious about all of what's happening off the field and the FIFA Peace Prize, and just like the almost the absurdity of it all. But I will say, I mean, I think someone in the last panel mentioned she was going to all 3 of Haiti's matches, and I still felt like a tinge of like, oh man, I wish I were going to those games, My brother got tickets in the FIFA lottery, like back in December, for Colombia against Uzbekistan in Mexico City. And
That sounds like fun, honestly.
and so I was thinking about it because I'm thinking also about the politics of it. I felt like very conflicted about like whether we should go or not. I think it feels better that it's in Mexico City versus in the US, but I also feel like in some ways it's like a cop-out to think that way, because it's still like a FIFA-run tournament, and most of the tournament is being played in the US. And Mexico's got its own problems that have gone kind of like swept under the rug, given all of the attention on the US, rightfully, but like so many people disappeared, the way that the authorities in Mexico have basically taken down all of the posters of victims of cartel violence that disappeared. And yeah, and so I think it's gonna be morally fraught regardless. And then on top of that, I'm gonna go see Colombia. The Colombian team, for so long could do no wrong in my eyes. Recently, they had a send-off with the president, the current president, Gustavo Petro, who is a progressive president who's leaving office. Colombia has this weird thing where presidential elections are every 4 years, right during the World Cup. Like it's actually like during the first week of the World Cup. It's always on Father's Day during the World Cup. And so even though it's on a Sunday, I'm like, how many people are we losing to, one, the World Cup, and also to Father's Day? Just like voting wise. But this year it's a super polarizing. I mean, it's been getting more polarized in the past few election cycles, but this year it's like an ally of Petro and a more progressive candidate with a candidate from the far right. And because it's election year, because there's all this baggage around Petro and the left, and because he's an incumbent, the players, when they went to this send-off ceremony, the way a lot of countries do, they like purposefully all seemed really upset to be there and very angry. Like James Rodriguez, our star, our fading star, but still I think he's got enough gas in the tank to take us kind of far. He like purposefully like ignored Petro's daughter when she asked him for an autograph, and it's like these small things that kind of are revealing a little bit. We don't really think about players' politics much when we watch soccer, but sometimes I feel like I don't want to know the politics of the players I watch, partly because I'm just watching them play, but also because it's opening a whole can of worms. But yeah, I felt a little bit of kind of like a dimming enthusiasm also because I'm going to be watching that team play in Mexico City, and just also, yeah, given the entire political situation.
Zito, the title of this talk was Football Despite, right? And despite, in the brief, I wrote the over-commodification of the game. I wrote geopolitical entanglements. What's the despite, I mean, for you? Like, what can eat away at your love of football?
Well, yeah, I think the way that I sort of think about it is like, it exists on two different spheres, right? Like the despite is that we have a right to this game that the institutions cannot take away from it, right? And this is partly what you're saying about the kind of love and the kind of shared joy. The game doesn't really belong to FIFA, right? Like the way that FIFA advertises the game is about how the people enjoy it, right? It's not when you're having a World Cup, the main thing about the World Cup is that it's a cultural exchange. The stuff that happens on the field is very important, like who wins, etc. But it's literally just about getting together with friends and watching, or like meeting new people and watching. I think one of my favorite things that's happening right now is like English people like experiencing American culture.
I've seen this, yeah.
Yeah, like that is what the World Cup is about. It's like, I want someone from Leeds to go to Tennessee, or I want someone from Leeds to be in Dallas right now with like a cowboy hat and like riding one of those mechanical bulls. It is that, like, that's where the heart of the game is. That's what the substance of soccer is. It's like playing pickup. It's like hanging out with friends. It's basically just being on the field, talking about Arsenal, talking about Liverpool. Like, that will always change. Who the players are will always change. Like, the nature of who's the winner and who's not will always change. So, but like the thing that doesn't change is like, it's a shared experience. It's a shared joy that people have. And so I think the stuff that I'm always saying is like, we have a responsibility, but also we have an ownership over the game in a much more substantial way than like the powers that be. Like Infantino doesn't own, like he basically doesn't own soccer. He doesn't even like it that much. For him, it's just a way to like align himself with Trump or align himself with like whatever authoritarian that he wants to. And it's a way for FIFA to like maximize as much profit as possible. But none of that works without the other stuff, which is like even us being here, right? Like this is the thing that brings everyone together. So I'm always like, I kind of champion that idea of like, you own the sport more than they do. And I think you see it a lot with the national teams. It's like, Haiti going to the World Cup means a lot to Haitians, right? Like the institution of FIFA is dirty and it's a FIFA-run organization, but you go and watch these Haitians, like when they qualify and you're seeing like celebrations in the street, you can't take that away from people just because Infantino wants to sell these people out, right? Like Nigeria not making the World Cup and now Nigerians are like avoiding eye contact with everyone. Like that's our shared pain that they can't take away, right? So like even when we were in AFCON together, like when Senegal won before, you know, legally they didn't win. But when Senegal won, I was outside and watching the Senegalese fans just like celebrate and like make it like this divine thing that Morocco tried to cheat them out and they still won. And seeing that sort of like pure joy that like the ways that they're together and like basking in this thing. I feel like it would be unfair to reduce the game to just what the institutions want it to be and the way that they use it without sort of like naming that other thing as the more important part of the game.
Final questions. Aleksander, I'm assuming the team that you're going to be watching the most, following the most is Bosnia at this World Cup. What are you most looking forward to seeing? What are you expecting to see? I mean, first time they've qualified since 2014, but this is a very young team. I think maybe the youngest in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about this, I mean, Bosnia is kind of better than the country that it represents in terms of Bosnian national team, right? And I don't want to get into the constitutional intricacies, but the national team is more representative of the country that I like than its government, right? And its constitutional organization. And so it has this sort of beautiful magic moment, despite Infantino and all this stuff. This is the nature of sport. To some extent, we always project ourselves into it. So in some ways, it's a better version of the dramas of life, at least for one of the teams, right? And so I look forward I'm going to watch most of their games in Sarajevo, right? Because I'm going.
Oh, you're going to Sarajevo?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And so with people will be on squares and everywhere and every screen, everything will stop. And you know when they play. So I want to experience that. I was in Sarajevo also in 2014, but that's when Bosnia lost to Nigeria, and then there was this consensus that we were robbed by the referee, and just drove me crazy. I guess it was the world, and instantly the narrative, the world is against us, kicked in, and there was. But even that was part of the sort of a collective experience, sort of an exchange of emotion, or being in the culture of emotion. So I look forward to watching it in Sarajevo. Like so, the first one on Friday against Canada, I'll watch here, and then the other two I'll watch in Sarajevo.
Miguel, what are you most looking forward to watching?
I'm still really looking forward to watching Colombia. I feel like two ways about the expanded World Cup. I know it's gotten a lot of criticism. I think it's kind of cool. And I think if it weren't like for Infantino, and for the reasons that they're doing it, I think a lot of us would be kind of for it. I mean, I think people will be for it after watching this World Cup. And the fact that it's been expanding ever since it started, also, I think it's a great experience because few teams, I mean, Bosnia, this is their second World Cup, right? Giving teams more opportunity to have just that experience, to be able to go to World Cup and say like, hey, we were at the last one and we know like what this is like, is great. So I'm excited to just see teams that I've never seen play before, like never taken the time to watch. But I'm also, hoping for Colombia to make a deep run.
And Zito, Nigeria has not qualified. So.
Yeah, so I'm on the misery train. I want to see maximum chaos, right? But even when Nigeria is there, that's always my sort of like through line. I want to see the most chaotic things happen in the World Cup. One of my favorite World Cup moments was when Germany lost to South Korea, and I was watching it and like Manuel Neuer coming out for the ball, and then the South Korean player taking it, and I was like tears in my eyes. I was like, this is what the World Cup is about. Causing maximum pain to Germans. But yeah, I'm always about, can we see chaos? What does that look like? Who's gonna lose? Or like, like another favorite of mine is like when Croatia beat England, like Mario Mandzukic getting injured, walking off, coming back 5 minutes later and scoring the winner. And I was like, he just broke the hearts of so many English people. And he did it in the most like, stereotypically masculine way. Like, I have one leg, but I'm coming out here to make sure that all of you are sad. And so whenever I'm watching the World Cup, I'm like, yes, beautiful game. I want to see the best players, but also like the drama. I'm like, where can I find the most like maximum chaos happening? And that's what I'm always like kind of rooting and trying to engineer.
An exercise in sadism.
Yes. If I'm sad, I want everybody else to be sad.
Fair. Thank you all for sticking it out. I have to reward you all, I have one giveaway. We have a beautiful South African jersey gifted to us by actually an Adidas representative. We wanted to raffle it off. We don't have raffle tickets, so I think the best way to do this is perhaps a trivia question. I'm gonna ask a question, and whoever, since it's Africa as a country and we're in the Africa Center, it's gonna be World Cup linked and Africa linked, and whoever can answer it will have this beautiful M-sized South Africa away shirt. So question is, as soon as you know the answer, raise your hand. Who is Africa's top goal scorer at the FIFA World Cup? I see a hand. Alistair. Asamoah Gyan, 6 goals. Thank you very much. So,
long live Gyan.
that was a little too quick, I think.
For real.
Do you know each other? Is this a setup? You know each other?
Yeah. He's actually a friend, but he's a journalist. He's an African football journalist. He's a nerd.
It's an Infantino thing.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you all for sticking it out. I know the Knicks are playing. I know we've run a little bit over time. Thanks again. I can't thank you enough. Sorry. And we'll keep it locked into africaasacountry.com. We have a lot more coverage coming your way during the World Cup. Thank you once more and have a good evening.
I'll definitely be tomorrow. Where's this? Before it was like the menus are getting bigger and bigger because we need the space. So I want to do it a soccer. Yeah.
Take care. Enjoy Bosnia. Thank you.
Oh, so were you there for the final?
Where is Laurent?
Brooklyn. It's like near Park.